Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 3 and episode number 309. And I'm going to guess off the top of my head of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network, the remix. Today recording day is Friday. Thank God I'm Friday. February 2nd, 2024. And I see that the kids had been placing bets on the over-under as to whether or not I'd have my hair down or tied up. And, well, now you know. It's two in a row.
Who won the pool?
They have so much fun while they're waiting for us. I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver, eh? And with me, as always, as you can hear, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Thank you for your patience in joining us. Someone, I don't know, did the coffee kick in this morning? Or
I've been awake since 3.
Okay, because for some reason I got to my email and it's like, I don't have a link.
Yeah, I was not awake and I got in and I sent JB the link because JB's joining us in a minute. Sent JB the link on DMs and Twitter and I forgot to open my email and send it to you. And I was like, you're like, I don't have a link. Oh, yes, you're going to need that. I find it's easier to co-host a show if you're able to join.
Lovely. As Mr. Grizzly said, we have a guest for you today. Oh, thank you, Kid Helen. Mr. Beaver looks good in orange. Thank you. It's always nice.
It's not a jumpsuit.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. It's always nice to start a show with a compliment. Thank you so very much. A big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. We have a guest, but before we bring our guest in, Mr. Grizzly, how's your mental health today?
You know, surprisingly, it's quite good this morning. And I say surprisingly because I woke up at 3 a.m. with a raging migraine, like a migraine so bad, it was like lying in bed just with an ice bag on my head, almost in tears. And Bridget started to massage my temples and the back of my neck to try and help get some of the pain away. And it did help. Eventually, I was able to, I took some painkillers and I took, kept the ice bag on my face. Eventually, it diminished enough so that I could fall asleep, but broken sleep, let's say that.
Okay.
So, I woke up at 3, fell back to sleep around 4, woke up at 5, fell back to sleep, woke up at 6, got out of bed, here we are. So, yeah.
Yeah. Let's see who we have today in the chat. Good morning, Kit PNC Bio. Good morning, Kit Sean. Lovely to see you. Good morning, Kit Linam. Hello, dear. Oh, we have Kit PM Godet.
How's it going?
How's it going? Ça va bien? À Bacaraquet. That's not a name I
We've opened last
recognize.
week.
Yeah, a name I recognize.
Kataraki?
PM Goday. No, Karake I recognize. PM Goday. That's
Oh,
supposed to be a
yeah.
new name in the chat for us. But welcome if you're new here. If you just change names, well, then you're allowed to do that here.
Yeah.
Oh, was that a dig at Daniel Smith? Sorry. Good morning, Kit Ellen. Good morning, Kit Wishful. Good morning, Kit Jillian. Good morning, Kit James. How are you, my friend? Good morning, Kit Elaine. Kit, I said Kit Ellen, but why not? She deserves to say hello twice. Good morning, Kit Cassie, Kit Tabby G, Kit Mike H, Kit Moan Hint family. Hello. Good morning to everyone there. Let's see, Jen. Good morning, my dear. I hope you're feeling better. Good morning, Kit. Angela, I hope that your event went very well on the 31st. If you want to write in the chat a little bit how it went, we'd be happy to share that with the kits as well. Let's see who else we have. Kit Vim. Hello, my dear. Comment ça va? Kit Mystical. Haven't seen you for a while. Lovely. Thank you for joining us. And of course, Madame Fox. Hello, sweet, 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 sweet soul. All right. We have a guest. Yes. Pierre Godin. I'm new here. Bienvenue, mon ami.
Ben oui.
Vas-tu te caraper la jet là-bas? I don't know if he speaks French or Acadian. That's the only Acadian French phrase I know. Pretty much means, are you gonna go get drunk or something? Gonna come drinking with us or something? Kid James Douglas beat me up on Twitter yesterday. I did not. We just had a lovely exchange of ideas.
Okay.
No.
All right.
Yeah. Our guest today, Kits and Cubs.
Swallowed coffee down the wrong hole. Wrong pipe, you know what I mean? Coffee went down the wrong way. Nothing like breathing coffee. It's not. You shouldn't breathe coffee. That's never good.
Yep. No, don't breathe coffee. Breathing under liquid is a fish thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not something we should be doing ever.
Oh, here we go, Kid James already. Wrong hole for name.
Oh my God.
All right. Our guest today, I have to say, is a let's try that again. Is a kindred spirit. Also a political junkie, like myself. Has a page on YouTube that you should probably be following called JB Canadian Politics 101. He's also on Facebook, also under Canadian Politics 101. I believe also on Twitter at CDN Poly 101. And he loves politics. He's very knowledgeable. He's able to deliver it like we do, pretty straightforward, and just make it very conversational. Doesn't talk down, comes with facts, does his research, knows his stuff. So we're just, I don't know specifically what we're going to chat about today. I know it was our discussion. Yeah, I know it was specifically our chat about what Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet had to say about Pierre Poilievre and his love of mirrors and lights.
Well, there's a few different things we can chat about, but why don't we bring him in and we'll get to the subjects, the topics at hand. Welcome to the Beaver Lodge, JB. If I can, there we go.
Good morning, you beautiful
Good morning.
people. How are you? How's things?
Good.
Very, very well. And JB, before we get into anything, when we have a guest, we also like to ask them, how's your mental health doing today, sir?
I mean, pretty good. I came home yesterday with about 30 Amazon boxes at my front door because, as we explained in private, I'm expecting a child. Mm-hmm. So the registry kicked in yesterday. So my parents went nuts and pretty much bought half of the things on the registry. So I'm stressed because I have to put that all together at some point over the next few months. So stressed, but I'm good. I'm happy. I'm clear. I'm awesome. Ready to go on with the day. So,
all right.
Big step forward.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Fatherhood.
I'm surprised she let me have a baby with her, honestly. I don't know why, but I'm still trying to figure that out. But we'll
you know what? I think that's something every man and father to be goes through.
Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. I'm in
She actually thinks I'm together enough to father?
Oh, good.
Has she met me?
Yeah, no, it's gonna be good. I'm excited. It's her second, my first. So we already do have a little one running around the house. So it's
nice. That's how.
So you're not a complete rookie to this, then?
Yeah, maybe to baby newborns.
To baby, yeah, because I entered in at toddler, right? So I skipped baby. So
right.
Well.
Oh, you didn't do the sleepless night phase yet.
Sleepless night and 3 a.m. feedings.
This is good practice, waking up at 6 a.m. because I normally don't. So this was good practice.
There you go. We're getting into the lane.
Yeah, perfect.
Speaking of lanes,
whereabouts in the nation are you joining us from?
I'm in the GTA, so not in Toronto, just outside Toronto. But to everyone else, I just say Toronto because that's the easier thing to.
It really is. Yeah. Well, I mean, Toronto's an hour from Toronto, right? So
yeah, I'm an hour from the end of my street. To be honest.
Yeah.
But no, Toronto's great. Been here 9 years, so I've it's become my home, more or less.
All right.
Yeah, because you're originally from O-Town, are you not?
Yeah, that neck of the woods, a little bit south, but technically Ottawa. So,
yeah. Excellent.
So,
all right, Mr. Grizzly, you were going to say something.
Well, yeah. So a couple of different things. Let's address. First off, I don't know if you saw it in the little bit of a write-up that we have here talking about safer supply and how in British Columbia they recently came up with the numbers to prove that everything Pierre Poilievre says is absolute bullshit.
Really?
Yeah. Imagine that, eh?
Newsflash. Breaking news.
Pierre Poilievre is full of shit. I had it here a moment ago, and I think I lost it. I thought I had bookmarked it, and somewhere I had. Oh yeah, I had everything written down, clipped. Yeah, I seem to have lost it. It had all of the numbers from the report. Most of them are in the write-up at the beginning of the show there. So if anybody wants to check it on YouTube, it basically goes. Oh, you do? Oh, thank you, sir.
On CBC, yeah. Backlash against, if you're looking for it on CBC, backlash against drug decriminalization and safe supply terrifies BC's exiting chief coroner. Lisa Lapointe says significant policy change at all levels of government is needed to save lives. Said since she became BC's chief coroner in February 2011, Lisa Lapointe has seen a lot of change. In 2016, the province declared a public health emergency over drug poisoning deaths. In 2023, BC decriminalized the possession of up to 2.55 grams of some illicit drugs for personal use. And then it seems, though the changes have been made, the number of people dying from toxic drugs continues to climb, a record high of 2,511 in 2023 for a total of more than 14,000 deaths since 2016. In a year-end interview, BC Conservative Party leader John Rustad argued that prescribed drugs are, quote, not safe, and an emphasis should be put on arresting and prosecuting dealers. Similar sentiments have been expressed by members of the federal Conservatives. Premier David Eby says that he's committed to moving forward with a 3-year decriminalization pilot project and said last week that he has a fundamental disagreement with Lapointe, who has called for non-prescription safe supply of drugs. The growing backlash in some corners terrifies Lapointe, who says that toxicology reports make it clear that illicit drugs are responsible for the vast majority, roughly 85% of toxic drug deaths, not diverted safe supply. She says she's worried that there's a move towards once again driving users into back corners for that purpose.
Safer supply saves lives, plain and simple. Plain and simple. It's not complicated. And the thing that we need to remember here is if somebody is addicted to a drug, they usually don't want to be. So people are saying, well, what we got to do is we got to get them off the streets. And no. What we got to do is get them safe. So you got to wean them off the narcotic, because if they go cold turkey, they could get really ill and in some cases die, which we don't want. The idea is to keep people. Alcohol is and it is a drug. Yeah.
Well, that's why they made liquor stores an essential service during the COVID lockdowns, because if you had to cut people off, there's a whole lot of mess that would have happened.
Yeah. Well, you think about the hospitals.
You
Yeah.
can't.
You
You just
can't.
can't do it. I personal life, I was an alcoholic in my 20s. And when I quit, everything I said is like, no, wean yourself off, wean yourself off. I tried cold turkey and I was in worse shape. And I was like,
Yeah.
no, and then I thought I relapsed. It was a whole thing, but there's a lot of misinformation about it, right? But yeah, safer supply saves lives. Like look at Portugal. Portugal did the exact same thing. And yes, to the stats there, while yes, illicit drug deaths still went up, it took a few years for that to sort of start to plateau and turn back down. So it's still too early to really determine if there's really a reduction, right? From that.
Well, this
Once again, we have a curb to bend.
Mhm.
I mean, this is a concept we should start being really familiar with now, right? It's like policy does not work instantly.
No, it takes time.
It's like, oh my God, you like put in carbon pricing. Oh my God, it's been all of 6 seconds. It didn't work yet. Well, I guess we should scrap it. It's like,
yeah, get rid of it. Get rid of it.
So we have a lot of things to talk about today, and it's a Friday, so I'm working from home, which means I can go on for a couple of hours. This is the one that everybody's making fun of right now after Sean Fraser basically murdered Andrew Scheer.
Top rope, elbow down, didn't
wow.
miss. Like just, I've watched a lot of politics. My dumb guilty pleasure is turning on Question Period and just having it on while I'm working during the day, and I had to stop what I was doing to clip that. Like that, I was in the middle of something when I saw that. Just absolute dummy of a move.
oh, well,
But
you know what?
We're talking about
Let's
Andrew Scheer.
do-
He's not the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree.
Oh my God. Listen, this guy, everybody's born with a 100-watt socket, and he keeps on insisting on putting a 10-watt bulb in there.
oh my God. Yeah.
All right. And we have the clip. Actually, I gave it to you. I actually took it from your page on Twitter, by the way.
So somebody said to me that like, why is Andrew Scheer still around? Because he's a useful idiot that will say anything, but he's in this like the most conservative safe seat in like Canadian history. Like nobody's touching that seat. The Liberals don't even have a shot at it. So he can't vote him out because his constituents keep voting him in. Right.
He also has a bill to work off.
Yeah,
that's true.
So let's
Forever
go to the
washing
clip, shall
dishes
we?
at Restaurant Chez Pierre.
Let's go to the clip, shall we? This is what we call political
I think
beatdown.
as Kit Jake from What You Can Do says, rope bounce, people's elbow. Poof.
This is a good one. Check this out for those of you who've not seen this.
Cost, and the carbon tax is going to drive up food prices again on April 1st when he drives it up by 23%. What's that going to do with food prices? Well, the Keostra poultry farm in Okotoks says that they're going to go from paying $180,000 this year to $480,000 when the carbon tax is fully quadrupled. These are hundreds of thousands of dollars in extra taxes that all get passed on to the shopper in the grocery aisle, and the rebate doesn't cover any of it. If the Prime Minister won't axe the tax, will it at least cancel his April 1st increase so food prices don't go up even further?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, families in my community do raise the cost of food as a very real concern. That's why we put forward measures like the grocery rebate. That's why we're introducing new reforms that will increase competition. But if the Conservatives would like to help, there's something the opposition leader can do. He can pick up the phone, because as I'm sure he knows, his chief advisor, Jenny Byrne, is actually a registered lobbyist for Loblaws in Ontario. Mr. Speaker, before the Conservatives sling arrows at this side of the House, I would invite the opposition leader to do what we all know is one of his favorite things. Take a look in the mirror.
The Honourable Member.
Just absolute.
Yeah,
dummies.
that was top rope elbow.
He walked right into it too. Like Fraser knew
pass
what he
out.
was going to say. Like he was waiting for that rant to go into grocery prices. We know that's what it was going to be, but
they make it so easy.
But it's not hard though, Paul. That's the thing. It's it's just very easy to do. You just see what they say, find the fact of the thing they're not telling, and then go with that. Right.
And it's something something the Liberal Party has not been doing nearly enough of
No.
until very recently. And you know, something we say on this show all the time, we don't tell you to vote for. Although currently we're saying, please don't vote conservative because they're not conservative. Yeah, ABC, literally. But if you choose to, that's your right, and we're not going to chastise you for it. But make an informed decision when you get to the ballot box. And the thing you need to understand is these people do not have your best interest in mind. They don't. So it's like about time that the Liberals fight back for and this is a case, a textbook case of how the Conservatives, the Reformers, are actually trying to get that little soundbite to put, you know, because I guarantee you, Scheer put that up and clipped out the Sean Fraser bit.
He exactly did.
Oh yes.
Yeah, 100% did.
Right.
Like,
Yeah. Absolutely. And right, this is, I mean, we've mentioned that a lot on the show. They're using the taxpayer-funded House of Commons as just basically a marketing tool for clips. There's another one yesterday where Pierre Poilievre is like sitting there like this, and he starts his like, I wonder, like this, and then Thunder Bayed, who always sends us stuff like this, shows us the thing and the response, and then you go to Pierre Poilievre's page, and he only has the I wonder clip with him being a little snarky and witty like this, and then he cuts it off there. So they're only there to pose and pose and pose and pose. Again, talking about lights and mirrors.
Look, like this is kind of what they need to do. I've been saying it for months now. As the liberals have been decreasing in the polls, as they say, they need to. If somebody's out there with an inferno, you can't go necessarily with a bucket of water and try to put it out. You need to match them. You need to match that energy in order to put it out. So use Sean Fraser as the punching bag. If he's the guy that's got to do it, stand him up every time to sit down Scheer, Poilievre, anybody. And
isn't he like 6'5" or 6'6"?
Oh,
like
he's
a
big dude. Big dude.
And
big
so
Nova
well
Scotia
spoken.
Boy.
So well spoken, knows his stuff, will not be pushed around, is whip smart. I mean, like,
he's going to be something in the Liberal Party. Post Justin Trudeau, I fully suspect Fraser's either leader or deputy prime minister. He's going to climb those ranks. Like he's there. Like he's definitely got that little spice to him.
And he literally is fighting for Canadians, literally doing it. I mean, you know, the whole housing thing. That when I was Minister of Housing, you did nothing, Skippy. You did nothing. And you weren't actually Minister of Housing. It fell under your portfolio at the time. And again, you did nothing. 20 years on the Hill, one piece of legislation, and it was pulled back because it was so bad.
Yeah.
Well, it sunk his party.
Yeah, it did. His what was it? Fair election or whatever.
Fair Election Act. Yeah, he named it as well.
Of course,
like even the names of the acts are advertising tools, right?
Yeah. It's very Republican American-esque type of behavior, right?
Yep.
Like I liked when our bills were simple names. The Canada Health Act. We know what it is. It doesn't need to be fancy. It was just we gave us health care. The Cannabis Act. We know what that is. Like there's no fancy. Conservatives love to. Doug Ford does it all the time in Ontario, with the like super long act titles. It's like, dude, just you're building a highway. You don't need to give it some like stupid name, right? Like, but
the Highway Forward 13 Act. Boom, just
that's simple enough.
Tell me what it is. Say what it is. You know, that's it.
Or be honest. I'm paving through the Greenbelt to pay my Developers Act. That's what.
Well, that's what it really is.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah.
No.
Now I have something here that both you gentlemen might find of interest. I'll give you some background on this. So this is a woman, Sarah Zagoda. She is in Alberta, I believe. Hang on. Mom, school tech, nerd, ethics enthusiast. Her Airdrie Treaty 7 territory, Alberta. She says, I just got an automated survey regarding parental rights in Alberta. It starts off talking about how kids need consent for tattoos, piercing, tanning beds. Then it brings up abortion. It states minor child with no definition. Who saw this coming? Let's have a listen to this, shall we? Because I'm curious to find out what exactly the UCP is doing when it comes to, children's rights in the province of Alberta. Come on, play. There we go.
Decisions regarding minor children, such as medical treatments, piercings or tattoos, the use of tanning beds, or even the administration of Advil at school, all require the consent of parents. Minors do not, however, require the consent of their parents to get an abortion in Alberta, nor is it required for parents to even be notified about their minor child's abortion. What do you believe? Should parental rights include parental consent for a minor child seeking an abortion? Please select the option that most closely aligns with your view. Press 2 if you believe parental notification and consent should be required for a minor child to undergo an abortion procedure. Press 3 if you believe parents should only be notified without requiring their consent for a minor child to undergo an abortion procedure. Press 4 if you believe neither consent nor notification should be required for a minor child to undergo an abortion procedure. Press 5 if you are Thank you for your participation.
I'm happy she showed what she picked, because I was getting concerned there for a second.
Yeah, she showed what she picked. Yeah. And it plays right into the whole bit about Daniel Smith's recent speech that, do I have it? I think I have it here. Yeah, no, that's not it. What was it? Our friend Nate
Pike.
Thank you.
From
the Breakdown, Alberta, said basically she did a press conference, I guess it was yesterday, talking about after her 7-minute diatribe. And in the press conference, he says, so this looks like they're about to restrict abortion rights from women. Well, didn't that phone call kind of go that route?
Was that an official phone call, or was that
from the UCP? Yeah.
From the UCP. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, look, they want the Handmaid's Tale, and they're going to do whatever they can to get it, because this is the route they're going right now in Alberta. We all know that David Parker basically runs, what's her name? Marlena? Is that her real name? Wait a minute. Shouldn't she have to consult with her parents to change her name? I'm just farting about.
No, UCP is crazy. I don't know what they're up to. Well, you do. We know what they're up to, but you also don't know what they're up to, right?
Exactly.
So,
yeah. Well, they're a little transparent that way. But yeah, that sure didn't take long to make that shift.
No.
JB, I'd like to ask you, what is it about politics that fuels your passion?
Honestly, it's been something that I always had an interest in. Even as a teenager, I was that kid that was encouraging people to go register to vote when they were 18, right? It's just always something that just scratched that part of my brain to engage people and have discussion with people. I'm a big believer that politics, everybody has their ideology, and it's healthy to have political debate. It's healthy to have a political conversation, because these are the decisions that are changing our lives, right? All three of us act within what the government wants us to do and what society says, right? So we'd be stupid not to have discussions about it and what we think is the right path forward. And I love a good debate, but it's got to be in good faith. And what's happening recently is you can't do that. You talk for 5 minutes to somebody and they bring up something about him being Castro's son, or something about Trudeau this and something about Trudeau that. And it's so I can't engage you anymore. We were having a good back and forth. Maybe it's about immigration. Maybe it's about housing. Maybe it's about healthcare. There's so many different things that we can talk about. But recently, and why I've stepped up to try to take a more information-based approach, is because I've seen a lot of people just from my hometown talk about things that are just blatantly wrong. And I'm it's not good. What started it was my father, my loving father, as nice of a man as he is, started posting anti-mask crap on Facebook back at the start of the pandemic. And I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? And he just didn't get it, right? He was just sucked into a trap that this was a bad thing. Mm-hmm. So I brought him out of it, because he's a sensible person when you get him thinking. So it's just I was I got to do something, because my own father's getting sucked into this crap. So that's when
that must have been a bit of a surprise to you at the same time. Holy shit, right?
Yeah. My dad's not he's an educated man, has a good career job. He's not stupid, right? So it's what are you doing? And he's just like, oh, I just don't like it. It's just different. And that's typical old person kind of thoughts, right? So, but he realized that's like, no, this is the right thing to do. And then it went away. But it was a scary week there when he was doing that.
I can well imagine. Yeah.
Well, it's a common thing because I mean, I hear it a lot about in the States, and it's happening here. But you hear a lot of people, their families, their family members, people they love, people they care about, their friends, whatnot. They see them being pulled down that rabbit hole, and they're trying to pull them back. And this type of rhetoric, it's not only dangerous to the nation, because it sets the stage for a whole bunch of stuff, and it all sets the base for stochastic terrorism. But they turn around and they talk about other people being divisive. I guess, and it's like masks are divisive, vaccines are divisive. Well, any idea really is divisive. Divisive in and of itself is not a bad thing. When you're separating good ideas from bad ideas, you're being divisive. But these types of things are literally dividing families. They're separating people who love each other from it's not politics. It's not, I believe in free trade, I don't believe in free trade, and we have a respectful disagreement, we move away. This is like, I believe that vaccines save lives, and I believe that you're trying to kill people, infect them with diseases. Like, this is a whole other level of division. What's it when you saw that moment happening like this? Like, what when you're informed and I guess you've made the choice to be informed, what does that feel like when you feel someone that you love just starting to slip away?
It was very, again, like I said, shocking, because that's just not my dad's persona. Like, people always say to me, it's like, oh, your parents were probably conservative. I'm like, nope, not my parents. Like, they were union loving, like, type of people, right? Like, stand on the front line, rah, rah, rah. Like, I'm, that. And then they birthed me, and I ended up being more left than they are. Like, they like, I'm over there. So, and so when you see somebody who you are politically aligned with, like, me and my dad get along and we agree on everything going forward, just to kind of see him go down that path was frightening at first. And the first person I talked to was my stepmom. Like, we got to stop this because this is dangerous, right? Like, you can't go into the grocery store without his mask on. Like, he's also older, right? So I just don't want anything to happen to him. And it took a FaceTime call, because obviously I'm away from home, with him, to be like, Dad, no, this is the reason why we're doing it. This is the reason why. He just didn't get it. And it's the whole thing that I like to say on my channel is, like, when people are presented with new information, they go down two paths. The smart ones learn about it. They take a step back and go, what is this? What is going on? Something's new in my life. Why is this new? What is happening? But then there's other people that don't want to do that or are afraid to do that. So they just get rage automatically. Like, that's the first thing that turns on is rage about it, because they just don't understand it. They just don't get it, right? But it's kind of to answer your question.
Well, when there's something new that comes into your life and you're asked to do something, right? Change behavior, for example. There's a cost to that. The cost is not always financial. It's energy, time, effort. You got to invest something. You got to do some research. You got to find out. You got to educate yourself. Or, it's like just even putting on a mask. It's like, okay, yes, I have to go get the mask, but then it's oh yeah, I have to remember to take the mask, and I have to remember to put it on. Like, there's a cost. You have to think about it. It's taxing. You'd rather just get on through your day, right? So you're soliciting something, because some people just don't want to do the work.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the big comments about it was, for the first time in people's lives, they had their privileges suspended, and they just couldn't handle it.
Suspended to a level that was noticeable, because we suspend privileges all the time. I use this example when I'm talking to typically anti-vaxxers or whatnot. I say, look, when you drove here to this event to hang up this flag and swear at the Prime Minister, did you stop at a stoplight or a stop sign? Right? Did you obey your traffic laws? Right? Well, yeah, of course. It's like, cool. What was physically stopping you at that stoplight? There's no barrier. There's nothing. You have full control of your vehicle. You could drive right through that red light. And they say, well, it's the law. It's the rules. Exactly. Right? So we give up these privileges all the time. Now, it's not anything negate or measurable to like harm, right? We're not harming ourselves by stopping a stoplight. We're actually saving ourselves, right? So they just can't make that connection, right? And when it came to the vaccine passes, like when we had to scan things to go into Denny's or whatever, they were mad about that. And then I used the car thing again. I'm like, well, you have a driver's license, right? You have proven to society that you are safe enough to do this. So you got this card saying you can do that, right? So you have, when you go into a Denny's to eat dinner and they require vaccine confirmation, that's your driver's license right now in this pandemic world. That's your license to go around and show society you've done the bare minimum to protect it. So it's kind of the way.
And yet so many people, that's a great way to explain it though.
Yes.
And so many people couldn't understand that. They just couldn't get it. And it's like, well, and I've watched you a number of times explain it to people and they'd be yelling at you. I'm like, you know what? That obviously this person that you're speaking to doesn't want to listen because you've given them a perfect example of why that is there. And but they're robbing me of my freedom. No, they're not.
Not really. Yeah. Not really. Again, not anything measurable that's going to affect you.
Yeah. And it wasn't
short-term or long-term.
It was short-term. It was never going to be a permanent solution. The sensible, critical thinking members of society that we like to associate ourselves with knew that. Yeah. They knew it was temporary.
Yeah, I did. And I was if we all do this, then we won't have to do it anymore. Like that's
right.
the thing.
And it's over faster.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I use examples, like Canada did very well with their vaccination program. We kind of hit a brick wall and stopped doing it, which was kind of frustrating. But the initial 2-dose, we did very well, like 89, 90 percentile. Other countries that have done that well bounced back very quickly. You know, our friends down in Cuba, they couldn't get any of the traditional vaccines. So they had to make them themselves. And they made 5 different versions of it. And their vaccination percentage was like 98%, not because they were communist and forced everybody to do it. It was completely voluntary. But the citizens knew, it was like, I got to do this because we need tourists back. We need our economy back. And the sooner that we can all do this thing, we can start welcoming people back into our country, which is a big driver of their economy. Right?
Cuba's tourism is like the biggest driver of their economy, is it not?
It's their only driver of their economy because everything else is blockade. Like,
that's right. Yeah.
It's literally all they have. So beautiful country, by the way. You should go if you haven't been.
I haven't been yet, but my sister has friends there, and she's like, "You got to come sometime." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sometime in the future, definitely gonna go and visit."
Don't expect good food. But.
No, I do know that. Yeah. But my friend, my sister's one of her friends owns an Irish pub in Havana, and she's like, "The food there is pretty good."
Yeah, if you go off resort, the food is like Cuban food is good, but anyways.
But you're right. I think the thing with Cuba is that because, well, one, it's an island, but two, with all the blockades, right? And there is only one economic source, and the economic source involves people traveling in and out. It's like the problem is like right there, right? Whereas over here, there's only one solution, really. It's like
and
get
look
vaccinated.
What happened. Very high 90 percentile did it, right? And you could argue that 2% is either a measurement error or it's people who just can't get it because there's allergies and stuff like that. Yeah, right.
And there was a very small percentage of people that simply were told by their doctors, you should not get this.
Yeah.
But that's
people with Lyme's disease, for instance, couldn't get it.
Yeah. Right? But that's why you get the 98%, right? That's the whole herd immunity thing. That's why we got measles popping back up again because not a high enough percentage of us have it, so now it's circulating. Right. When you come up with these, when you come up with these simple examples, because as we mentioned, also like in one way there's a cost to changing behavior, but once you've gone down that rabbit hole and you've bought in, you're invested at that point. Like this, it's hard to say I was wrong. There's a cost to that too. Right. So how do you know where the line is between, okay, I just have to work a little harder, find more examples, or you're just too far gone. Yeah. And I can't do anything for you.
My line is when we circle back, when the arguments circle back on themselves. So we can talk about issue A. We address issue A with the facts, the knowledge, with what very simple terms like what's wrong. Then we go to issue B. We address issue B. We go to issue C. We address issue C. And we continue through the list until the list is done. But then if we, in some time in that process, we end up looping back around because they're bringing up the existing argument that we already just talked about, then there's no point, because you're just wasting your time. You're just going to repeat yourself over and over again. And there's no cycle. You could do it one time. You could do it 100 times. That person's not changing at that point. They are so dead set in whatever view that they have that you disagree with, that even when you explain it to them, they still loop around and use that as an argument against the thing you just said. Right. So at that point, I just view it as like, I'm done. I can't engage a good conversation with you at this point because there's nothing to talk about. I've already told you everything. So I think we should probably just change the subject or move on or part ways to whatever the dynamic of that conversation is. Right. So,
yeah. You posted a great video following the Bloc Québécois thing, Yves Blanchet, explaining some things that a lot of people don't seem to really understand about the Bloc Québécois. And something that we mentioned on the show around the time that Legault came around, because a lot of people may not be aware. If you're in Quebec, you're aware, but if not, Legault and Blanchet can't actually stand each other.
No.
Yeah.
They like really despise each other because Legault basically thought, well, Legault's going through some troubles now in the polling and all that kind of stuff. He's in a free fall. But when he was flying high, it's like, he's basically looking at Blanchet, it's like, why are you, almost like he's a parasite. It's like, I'm the one that's doing the hard work. All you have to do is take the vote that's at the National Assembly and run to Ottawa and say, hey, the people of Quebec say, and the Bloc Québécois doesn't really do much policy work.
No,
they just basically take what the Assemblée Nationale says and then bring it to Parliament like he's sort of emissary or something. Right.
Which is fine. And if that keeps Quebec with us, if that makes them happy, great. Right. Yeah. That's kind of what I have no problem with the Bloc. People are like,
right.
What do you have an issue with the Bloc Québécois? I'm like, I don't. I get it. Because a federal party isn't defined that you run in every riding, which is you would traditionally think like that's what's a federal party. I could start a party tomorrow just for my local town that I grew up in with one riding. And if I get elected as an MP, I'm a federal party. I'm a federal MP. I represent my constituents, but I'm sitting in the House. I'm doing federal government stuff. So the Bloc is only job is to make sure that Quebec's best interest is in mind. And great, awesome, whatever. Like
they're an issue party.
Yeah, right. They're a single issue party, and their issue is Quebec, right? Whether that's what's avocation or protection, right? So, but there's the difference between the provincial Quebec politicians, especially people like the Parti Québécois, which is full on separatist, and the Bloc, which originally had a separatist message, but transitioned into a more sovereignty message. They're there to protect Quebec's sovereignty, right? And people mix that up. People look at Blanchet and think he's some separatist. It's like, nah, Blanchet's not a separatist.
No.
He's not. Frenchman, but not a separatist by any means. So
now, James, I'm going to do something here because I'm not trying to single you out, but it's something that I hear often, and I know that you will bring the facts. A lot of people believe that the Bloc's actual existence is not constitutional. There's a lot of people in Canada that believe that.
So do we have to go to the Charlottetown Convention when we started to form our country, when Quebec famously didn't want to join our country and we had to make all these concessions to have a federal government with Quebec in it because they are culturally different, right? That's the thing is like, this is a culturally different area of our country. So they just want to be represented. And we were seeking independence or starting the process of independence from a group of the British who did not like the French. So I understand them having this disdain. So it's very different than other regions of our country when it comes to that sovereignty message, right? So
it is a very different culture in the province of Quebec. I know I lived there for a number of years. I live right across the river from it. I've got family and friends all throughout the province. I spend 28 Christmases in Montreal and spent many summer vacations in Montreal visiting families. So I do understand that there is a huge cultural difference between Quebec and the rest of the country. And it's not just a language thing. It's more than that. But I mean, I've also said too, and a lot of people have never really paid attention to this, is that Larry Thunder Jesus, you ever been to Newfoundland? Because that's a culturally significantly different place than any other part of Canada. And remember, Newfoundland and Labrador is not part of the Maritimes. It stands on its own. The Maritimes are New Brunswick, PEI, Nova Scotia, and Gaspé Peninsula for the most part, because the peninsula is very much maritime-like. But Newfoundland and Labrador stand on their own. They're separate in that sense. And because they were the last member to join Confederation, the last province to join Confederation, they stand out on their own too. But they also, if memory serves, didn't they have a butt ton of debt from World War I?
Oh, Newfoundland?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were broke.
They were flat broke because they were independent at the time. They were heavily tied to the UK, but they were an independent...
the UK basically strong-armed them into joining World War I, if my memory recalls. Right? They were in it before we were, technically.
Yes.
And Newfoundland, and that's why they didn't join the Confederation when we formed it, because they were different. They were like, no, we're not Canadian. We are Newfoundland.
That's right.
And Labrador, right? Like, they were a different thing. And yet they ended up joining because they needed money. So here they are. Welcome to I love Newfoundland. Beautiful, best part of our country. Hands down.
Agreed.
But yeah.
Well, I used to live there, I'll tell you this now.
I've done
Lived
the
in
George
Gander
Street
and St. John's.
experience. Oh, Gander's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
I've done the George Street experience. It's something every Canadian should do once, right?
It's an experience. Did you get screeched in?
Oh yeah. I did the whole thing.
I've never been screeched in.
Oh,
well,
you live there, so it's different. So
and I can't kiss the fish because I'm allergic to it. So
Oh, okay.
That might kill me.
I'm not saying that was the best part. Kissing the fish was definitely not the farthest from the best part. And you think the screech would be the bad part, but that's actually pretty tame compared to the fish.
Pretty tame, yeah.
But yeah.
Hey, Carpet Palmer. Well, there we go. Carpet Palmer here joining us on watching on one of the Twitter feeds. Thanks. Yeah, thank you. We try and, we always try and bring in facts, folks, and that's our job here is to present facts first, and we try and do as much research as we can to bring you those facts. So yeah, thank you for that comment. We compliment. We appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I brought it up is specifically, how to put it, when it comes to the Bloc Québécois, there's a lot of people, like you mentioned, right, what it takes to be a federal party. But there seems to be a lot of people that believe that simply because it wants to represent Quebec's interests only, and simply because it does emerge, right? There was a separatist movement, or there still is in Quebec. It's not as strong as it was, but it emerges somewhat from that feeling, right? But like you say in your video, the Bloc was formed by conservatives and liberals, and maybe some people who are more sovereignist or more autonomist than actual separatist. Yeah. But like, that in itself doesn't mean that it should not have a right to exist. It doesn't run candidates in all provinces, in all provinces or all ridings, so therefore it shouldn't exist. It only talks about Quebec, therefore it is unconstitutional. It should, like, the law is written in such a way that if it's not expressly forbidden in the law, it is allowed. Yeah. I guess, or they're upset that they're in. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say they get a large chunk of votes too. Like they are not unpopular. They get more votes than sometimes, depending on the elections, than some other federal parties get. Mainly a purple one that has been trying to do things for the last 8 years and has failed. But
miserably.
But that's the thing, is like the PPC is begging to be legitimized during their whole existence. They want to be in the debates because they want to feel like they're important, and they shouldn't run candidates in every riding, but they do. Some of them are a little bit weirder than others, but they pose a candidate. So that's their argument, is that we're a federal party, but the Bloc gets more votes than you. So why should they not be represented federally? I get the argument. Like, I get, like, oh, they only run in Quebec, so
it's a sensible argument. Yeah, it is a sensible argument. I've always felt that way too. I mean, and we talked about this recently, a few years back, when the debates were on, Elizabeth May was refused a seat at the debate table for, I think, the second debate. This is a number of years ago, and I'm like, well, hang on a second now. Their party actually is national. They didn't have a single seat, but they had somebody running in every riding, right? So they're like, well, you're not a national party because you don't have a seat. And I'm like, but they're running across the country. I think they were largely afraid of her because after the first debate, she made mincemeat out of all of them, and they didn't want to debate her again.
Excellent debater. I think you guys have said this on an episode in the past. She's a fierce parliamentarian and a debater. Yes. Like, she's one of the few people, her and Blanchette, funny enough that we're talking about the Bloc Québécois, are two people that I would not want to have a debate with, because I'm probably going to lose. Even though I might be politically aligned with them from time to time, I'm not winning a debate against those two individuals. Like, I'm just not. I will concede at that point. So, and I think that scares Trudeau. That scares Poilievre. Well, Scheer and O'Toole at the time. And, like, it scared the hell out of Harper. That's why they changed the debate rules.
Yes.
They had to have 2% of the vote. And then all of a sudden she got 2% of the vote. So they couldn't use that anymore against her. So it was.
Oopsie.
Yeah. Oh, I got popular. And I got 2 seats.
Yeah. In the last federal election, the Bloc got more votes than the Greens and the PPC combined.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. They're not an unpopular party. I have some Quebecois in me. My grandmother, unfortunately, was on the separatist side of that referendum, but she's a fierce Quebecer. But it was just because she felt she never got represented by Ottawa. So now that the Bloc's here, she lives in Ontario now, but now that the Bloc's here, she would probably be a Bloc Québécois supporter, all things considered, right?
So one of the questions that a lot of people pose is, how come everybody gets up in arms when Alberta talks about, Wexit? They want to leave, they want to separate from Canada. And I'm like, well, I don't know how they can actually do that, because 100% of Alberta is on treaty territory. So for them to separate, they need to rewrite the Constitution Act of 1982, which requires the Supreme Court of Canada, and they need consent from the King of England, which is the King of Canada, Charles. I have a hard time calling him King Charles.
It's not going to be around much longer. You won't have to remember it for.
That's true. But I mean, he's definitely on the side of Aboriginal and Indigenous peoples in this country, and has been for a long time, because he knows what we did to them. So when Alberta talks about, we're going to separate, I'm like, good luck. Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah.
It's simply, it can't happen.
Yeah. Well, even when Quebec was looking to do it, like, there was always that big question, like, what if it goes through? Like, what do we do? We were probably a lot younger at that time, but at the same, I remember it very vividly as a child when it was happening, because I lived so close. I lived in Ottawa at the time. So, like, there was a genuine fear about like, what's going to happen. I was just kids. My whole concern was, can I go to the Museum of Civilization ever again? Because I thought it was going to be turning into this, like, dystopian walls up kind of thing, because I was a child. I didn't understand.
Your papers, please.
Yeah, like, no, but, like, there was a genuine, but Quebec has it in the Constitution that they can leave, right? So they, well, not directly worded like that, but the original signees can do it. So Alberta doesn't have a constitutional ground to stand on, because they agreed to it later at that time. So, but it poses any question to any province, from Ontario to Newfoundland back to Quebec or Alberta. How would a leave look like? We are a federalist model, right? So we're removing that federal government. What does that mean? If you're a border province, guaranteed, so there's an issue there. So what happens with the U.S. Alberta border? Like, there's so many questions that go unanswered.
Well, and they talk about how, we'll just build a pipeline to the Pacific. I'm like, yeah, there's a province of British Columbia that wants to have a chat with you. And they'd have to go through treaty territory to get to it as well. Only about, I think, a third of British Columbia is treaty, not the whole province. And actually, I've got the map here. Let me just pull it up so we can have a look at it to see. And there it is. Yeah, so it's only the upper third
Yeah,
of
that's all of Alberta and Saskatchewan
and Manitoba. Yeah, and all of Northern Ontario for the most part.
Yeah.
Right, that is all treaty territory, and you can see the different numbers: 7, 8, 6, 10.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how would they get their pipeline to I don't know, Vancouver to
They'll
British
smash
Columbia?
it through the states. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
They'll just go through the states at that point. But
except didn't Joe Biden shut that down?
well, the bigger one. But yes. Yeah. That's the thing. Is I don't know. I don't think there's any logical situation for any province in Canada to leave, because as much as we are, culturally different from coast to coast to coast,
Yes.
we are still united in a front that the best thing to do is to be together.
Mm-hmm.
While somebody in BC has very different issues than somebody in Saskatchewan or somebody in Ontario and then somebody in Newfoundland, we can all sit down in one house and figure this all out. That's the beauty of our country. It's the beauty of the Westminster system, is you can have different representation from different regions. And I encourage more parties to pop up. If a party wants to pop up and represent Alberta at the federal level and just Alberta, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to just do a city, say, like I said in my video, I could create the Toronto party tomorrow, and we could only run in the Toronto ridings and represent Toronto interests. I could do that. I'm allowed to do that. And I encourage people to want to get motivated that way. Even if your alignment of politics isn't the same as me, right? That's kind of my thought on that. But
I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Because there are things, it's okay not to like something, right? You can be in British Columbia or in Alberta, and you can not like the fact that, the Québécois have chosen to organize themselves in such a way. Right? The rules don't stop you from doing it. I mean, they did do it. That's what the Reform Party was at the beginning.
Yeah.
The Reform Party was essentially Bloc Québécois, Alberta.
Yeah.
And then they realized, but the Bloc Québécois never presented itself public as having the aspiration of wanting to run the country. The Bloc Québécois tomorrow could start running candidates all throughout New Brunswick, through Northern Ontario, Eastern Ontario, some parts of Manitoba. Yes, who knows? Maybe even pick up a couple of seats. Who knows? Maybe in another weird election like was in I think it was
when they were the opposition.
When they were in the opposition, if things split all over the place.
Yeah.
If things were, if they got, let's say that they swept Quebec one year and they got all 78 seats, and then picked up 12 in New Brunswick, 80, and picked up about 5 in Northern Ontario and whatnot like this, and ended up with 90 seats, and things split it up 90, 87, 80,
they could be the majority.
They could technically be the government
and form,
but they never have presented themselves as having that aspiration.
One of the big things in political science is running simulations. So you put the election results through simulation. And remember the old show Air Farce back in the 90s and the early 2000s? They had political scientists on their staff, so they could write these clever whips and jokes about politics. There was a simulation in that 2004 election where they won the opposition, that every now and then the conservatives, the liberals, the reform, everybody at that time, I think the reform is gone, but either way, everybody at that time split the vote enough that the bloc, just with Quebec, can get the most seats. There is a mathematical possibility with the number of parties we have that can actually happen. And just imagine a world where Lucien Bouchard was the Prime Minister of Canada. Imagine. It wouldn't last long. That government would flop in a second. But
I remember Air Farce did a skit about that, and somebody was on pretending to be Lucien Bouchard.
Yeah,
and he was talking to him. Yeah, and he goes, "I am the leader of the loyal opposition," and you see everything shakes, and they go, "What was that? René Lévesque rolling over in his grave."
But the thing is that they provided responsible opposition. It's in the last 40 years of my life, the party that provided the most responsible opposition that we've had.
I know, weird.
Ironically, for a party that allegedly wants to destroy Canada.
Yeah.
Because their philosophy is their philosophy is, if it's good for Quebec, we vote for it. If it's not good for Quebec, it's not. And Quebec is still within Canada, and about 95% of what's good for Quebec also happens to be good for Canada.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
we're sandwiched between Russia and the United States.
Yeah.
And Denmark now. Denmark can't.
That's
can't-
right.
Oh, yes, in Denmark.
We
share
got
a
that
border.
land border with Denmark now for
Yes.
So
half a
should we
mile.
not get European carte blanche passports now?
I want us to set up a pipeline between Denmark and Canada, smacked right through that rock in the north, right? Let's tie up with our European brothers and sisters, right?
Well, how many times has Denmark been voted as the happiest nation on earth because of the quality of life
And
they
we've been
have?
number 2.
Yeah.
So number 1 and number 2 now border each other with a land border. Yeehaw.
Rocan, Saint Pierre, and Miquelon, and we're rocking, man.
Yeah. That's another thing is you can go to Europe for a 2-hour flight from Montreal, and people don't realize that.
Nobody knows that. It's like
that little island off the coast of Newfoundland.
It looks like Newfoundland. It feels like Newfoundland, but it's France, and it
with
is
European
France.
passports.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they
I
use the
wanna go.
euro.
I was actually
want to go.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
No, please.
So I was actually in Newfoundland for Canada 150. Yes, and I was walking on. Oh God, sorry. You just named the name of the street, and I've lost
George
it.
Street.
On George Street. Yes, and I saw 3 people, with the black and white stripes and the berets like this. They had come from Saint Pierre and Miquelon to Newfoundland. They're in the streets talking French. And I'm going, oh, I know where you're from.
So crazy. So crazy. Yeah. And the same thing down in South America. There's a French border with Brazil. France's longest border is actually with Brazil, which people seem to forget.
Don't know. Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Compared to like Spain and then France or Germany on the other side, and Belgium and Luxembourg, those borders are shorter than their border.
And Switzerland too.
Yeah. There's a little bar trivia for you if you're ever get that question to come up.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a little fun little fact. I'm a vault of useless facts and information.
I kick ass at trivia night in the pub.
Oh, I was doing so good at trivia night at the pub, they made me host it because
you can't compete.
I kept winning. Yeah, they're like, you're done. Here's the microphone. Just take it, please.
It's not fair to anybody.
Yeah.
So when they get to the math and sciencey ones, like chemistry, algebra, science.
See, that's where I shine. Science is my jam, right?
Well, I love science, don't get me wrong, but when it comes to chemistry, it's a complete.
Yeah,
it might as well
more
be
of a biology kind of
Yeah.
thought, like cells and splitting cells and stuff.
That was easy. That was easy.
Yeah. Chemistry is fun though. Blowing stuff up in the field in the back of the high school was. I had a pyrotechnic chemistry teacher.
Oh,
so
really?
like he was like fire. So like everything we blew up every day. I was like, cool.
It's like, how do make kids actually go to science class? Let's blow shit up.
Literally every day. He's like, want to blow something up right now? If it was like a dull day, it was a test day, we'd finish like, let's blow something up, and you just pull out this like jug and blow up. You just have that ready. You have an incendiary ready like at beck and call. I wonder what he's doing now. I don't think he's teaching anymore.
Maybe he's working in pyro for the film industry in Toronto.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm meant to go work for Rammstein or something like that. Just doing their concerts.
That's a full-time gig. Oof.
Oh, yeah.
Du hast mich.
Good concert.
What's making that noise?
Sorry, it might be my wife is getting up and getting ready for work, so you might be hearing residual effects. I can mute for a bit if you need to.
No. It sounds like there's a coin dropping on a desk or something.
I don't hear that.
Oh, okay. I hear it kind of loud and clear. Okay, interesting.
Are you having a stroke? Do we need to call 911?
No. It's been happening throughout the show.
Oh, okay.
I was just wondering.
I'm not.
Well, let's move to science then, since you like it.
Good.
Got any thoughts about what the conservatives are putting out in terms of BS with regard to climate change?
You know, I actually have to refer down to our friends in the US because a really funny thing is happening right now. So Taylor Swift is dating that Kansas City Chiefs. This has a point to your talk, so bear with me. So Taylor Swift is dating that Kansas City Chiefs person, but she's also on her Eras tour. So she is going to football games wherever they're playing the game, and then getting on a private jet and flying to Hamburg to do 3 shows, then is flying back for these football games. She's bouncing around the world doing this stuff. And conservatives in the US now are freaking out that she's spreading too much CO2 emissions. So it took Taylor Swift getting involved in football for conservatives to admit climate change is real. Like, who would have thought that was the path that we went down, is that it took a pop star touring around the world for them to admit that this is a bad thing. Like, I'm happy you're here, guys, but
a pop star that's not really on their side either, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's even the best part, is she endorses Joe Biden every chance she gets. So like,
oh my God. Well, no, because that's so funny, because that's literally happening here though, with the leader of the opposition talking about every time the prime minister travels, when the prime minister is doing his job of being prime minister and doing prime ministerially kind of things. Like this, which means like going to other countries to like be prime minister representing Canada.
Yeah, right. He's going down to the U.S. I'm waiting for the outrage on this. I'm predicting future outrage. So he's been invited by Joe Biden to the White House in April because there's a state dinner for Japan. So they're having the Japanese prime minister there for a state dinner in the U.S. So the United States invited the other Pacific ally, Canada, to the state dinner. So Trudeau's going. I don't think that's a bad thing. That's diplomacy. That's showing our alignment with both our Japanese and our American friends. I predict there to be outrage because Pierre's not invited and no other conservative politicians invited, so they can't get the spotlight. This is going to be a really good press situation because Trudeau's the only other world leader that's invited. So I'm predicting outrage in April. Just wait for it. Have me back on when it happens, because I'm pretty much, I guarantee there's going to be outrage for that, because there's going to be pictures of him and Biden in the black tie. There's going to be like, that's all going to come out, right? And they're going to be really mad about that.
Now, the reason I bring it up is because we have a certain leader of the loyal opposition, who is bragging about, I've hosted 143 town halls or something like that over the last year. How's he getting there?
Yeah.
On his bike.
Yes.
He's on his bicycle. He's taking his carbon tax rebate and bought a bike.
No, that doesn't exist.
Oh, right. No, they acknowledged it yesterday.
Oh, they did.
When it fits their narrative.
Yes.
In that video we played, right? They acknowledged the rebate doesn't cover it. Oh, cool. So now you know about the rebate.
Yeah.
When it doesn't pay for your farmer you cold called and got a bill from. Like, it's but yeah, no, they're acknowledging it now. But yes, and the town halls. And I did this. I found this out because you can go and look at the public expenditures of most members of parliament.
Right.
You can look it up. It's on the Our Commons website. And Pierre, because he can't use campaign dollars for these rallies, because that's a violation of the Elections Act, he's got to use government money and use it under the ruse of its official opposition business, which, sure, he's allowed to fly to places if there's a factory opening and they want to invite him out, or there's an event or something going on. He's allowed to travel. I have no issues with any politician traveling around to do different things, right? But he's spending over $1 million a quarter traveling, more than any other opposition leader has ever spent. Ever. Like, even when Trudeau was opposition leader. He never was. Trudeau never was opposition.
No. He went from third to first.
Yeah.
Right. Sorry, I'm thinking of Thomas Mulcair, when he was after Jack Layton. He traveled around to do stuff. He was the opposition leader. He's got stuff to do. He's got places to go. But $1 million a quarter, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Air Canada lounges.
Well, and he keeps talking about how he's going to get people who are living in their parents' basement out and into housing, because they're going to, wait a minute, they're not going to build houses.
No, they're going to.
How's he going to lower? How's he going to lower the price of housing again? Oh, that's right. They don't have a plan.
Their only plan is, they said they're going to punish municipalities that don't build houses. Cool. So go to the city of Toronto, who's broke, by the way.
Yeah.
And say, build houses or we're not going to give you any sort of federal funding. It's like, okay, so you can't do that. Where Sean Fraser skipped the middleman and jumped right over Doug Ford and went to Toronto and said, we're going to give you a $1.2 billion loan to build houses. And they're building enough houses to repopulate 25% of our city's population. That's progress. Yes, they're not going to be built tomorrow. It's going to take time to build it. But to say you can build enough houses to populate 25% of the city's population, and it's massive. A loan that they got to pay back.
Yeah.
Where's the issue in that? Like, I don't, that's work. That's progress. So.
Well, and the whole, he's gonna punish cities if they don't build, right? That's what he said.
Mm-hmm. Something like that.
Isn't that what a dictator would do?
Isn't that against the Federalist Papers by going against the federal government overstepping in municipal politics, right?
Yeah.
So
I didn't.
Isn't that something the Conservatives fought for in the conventions? That's what Sir John A. Macdonald. That's what made him prime minister, was because he allowed regional governments to still govern themselves versus the original model, which was the federal government's over-encompassing and does everything, like other Commonwealth countries did. Interesting, eh? It's like, there's a little history that you forget about.
Yeah, I had forgotten about that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I did.
This is why we bring in people that are smarter than us.
Again, vault useless information. That's all that this is. This is just me remembering dumb things. Not really dumb things.
This is a very good point from Rhiannon Saucy, which Pierre Poilievre also said a rural area like Halifax did not have a big enough population to invest in housing here. We have over 3,000 families who do not have a permanent residence. Halifax is 500,000 people, but apparently, according to him, that's a rural area that's not big enough.
No.
Half the province of Nova Scotia resides in that city.
And that's partly why I do agree with housing should be a provincial issue. I think it actually should also be a municipal issue in conjunction with the provinces, because they are going to understand the unique needs of their regions, right? Like the premier of Nova Scotia is going to understand that those communities that's an hour from Halifax exist that have people who need to live there and are unhoused or whatever, right? They understand that, but the provinces aren't doing that. And the municipalities are crying for fundings, and we want to build houses. Our zoning's changed. We're ready to go. We just need money. Like, we need capital investments. The private sector's not doing it. Or if they do, they don't build homes that people can afford. So the public sector has to do it. Yet when the federal government does it and steps up and says, okay, we got you, that's a big issue. It's like, well, no, it's like, why are you doing that? It's because it's making the Conservative premiers look bad, and they don't like that.
They don't like that at all. Well, it's each time Skippy says, we're going to make groceries affordable, we're going to make housing affordable. So is he going to nationalize the grocery chain? Is the federal government going to start to hand out mortgages at affordable rates? Like, how does he propose to do this? Oh, that's right. He doesn't. He just has slogans, baseless slogans with zero foundation for anything he says.
Well, speaking of
party of talking points.
Yeah, that's all it is. Yeah.
Let's put this visual up, Mr. Grizzly.
Yes, sir.
Good. Because this has been going around now. Yeah, Poilievre has got a plan. He's got policies and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of loops back to all the stuff where Mr. Blanchet said he hasn't presented a damn plan. And he has no policies for me to respond to. This is... Mr. Grizzly, please read it.
The common sense conservative plan: axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime. Axe, build, fix, stop. Okay, I'm going to stop all of this.
With an axe, a hammer, a wrench, and a hand that goes...
Please explain to me how any of that is a platform.
Or a plan.
It's a platform. It's not a plan. Right? That's two very different things. And I think people really make that confusion when talking about politics. Is you can have a platform, and your platform is going on socials and telling what you think is right and wrong, and going to communities and hosting town halls when applicable to talk about what is right is wrong. That's your platform. But you have to have a plan. And every official opposition, like the actual opposition parties, since the internet era, have listed their plan on their website. Like dating back to the 2000s when political parties started making websites, you could see their plan. That was the whole purpose of building a website for them, was to put their plan up. And Aaron O'Toole had a plan 2 years out from election. Andrew Scheer had a plan 2 years out from an election. And the Conservatives have a plan. They voted on it at their party convention, but they haven't put it out yet. And they always say, well, it's because Trudeau's going to steal it. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want him to do things you want to do? Like it's a dumb argument. Yet there's nothing. But they say, oh, our plan is that axe the tax, the familiar acronym ACFFS or whatever that was. The easy to remember acronym. But my point is like, how are you going to stop crime? That's a provincial thing.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to do? Like, hire more RCMP officers? Like
provincial and municipal, for that matter, right?
Yeah.
And you see, and this proves, if you put it back up there, Mr. Grizzly, for a second, see, this proves that they don't have a comms person. Because if I were doing that, I would have put fix the budget first, axe the tax second, build the homes third, and stop the crime fourth, and it's called FABs.
Yeah. See?
Instead of
I can remember that.
Abs. Fabs.
Yeah, like stopping crime, cool. You're going to hire more RCMP officers. And what, are you going to change the criminal code to make something illegal already illegal? Like,
well, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Like,
well, and that's what I'm saying too. It's like, after allegedly common sense conservatives, which is not a thing, axe the tax for food, and the prices are still high because, as the Governor of Bank of Canada said, it adds 0.03% to inflation. Then who do you blame and what are you going to do? Like, I think it's you're the person, Mr. Good, said, like, okay, those are the first 10 words of your plan. And what are the next 10 words?
Well, we'll release that just before the election, so Trudeau doesn't steal it.
So you've axed the tax, on my donuts. So my donuts are now $3.73 rather than $3.79. And my donuts are still 20% more than they were a year and a half ago. Now what do you do to reduce the price of my donuts?
Yeah.
Because that 6 cents really helped me afford my rent.
Well, it's like when Pierre was pushing out the thing about the mushrooms. There's this mushroom farm in the greater Ottawa area, which is but they put their bill on social media being like, this is how much we pay in carbon tax. And a fellow friend of mine on TikTok actually broke it down and figured out how much pounds of mushrooms this farm distributes. And it actually only accounted to 0.002, not even a cent, price increase of their price of mushrooms, because math, quantity, volumes, all that stuff is something we have to consider. And that's why the Bank of Canada, the people who are smarter than us on this, have figured it out that this doesn't really infect inflation. So, and what is Pierre going to do in BC or Quebec or Newfoundland,
where they've had a carbon tax?
Federal carbon tax.
Yeah.
Cool, Pierre. You axe the federal carbon tax. Great, good job. First thing as you do as Prime Minister is you axe that carbon tax. Go for it. How is this making it cheaper for people in Quebec or Newfoundland or BC, where that tax doesn't affect them? They have their own carbon action initiatives, so they don't pay the federal carbon tax. And this is what I say to everybody. It's like, Doug Ford tomorrow could get rid of the federal carbon tax on Ontario by just acknowledging climate change exists and doing cap and trade or some other program that reduce carbon emissions. And it'd be gone. We'd be done. We wouldn't have it in Ontario anymore. Like, it's a federal backstop. It's not anything more than that.
Well, that's the whole thing. The whole reason we're paying federal carbon tax in Ontario is Doug Ford.
Yeah,
yes.
He gave it to us.
Yeah. They got rid of cap and trade and put on the carbon tax.
Yeah. It's like if anybody from Ontario, if you happen to be a conservative voter and you are hate watching us right now, if you hate the carbon tax, which is really carbon pricing, the Supreme Court ruled it's not a tax.
It's a
but
regulatory
if you actually hate the carbon tax, you have nobody to blame but Doug Ford.
Exactly.
And Stephen Harper introduced the plan in 2007.
That's right.
So, including the increasing, not just the flat tax,
Yes.
like the increasing. That was all a conservative plan. So
the price that the carbon pricing is right now is the price at which Stephen Harper said he would bring it to eventually when he first announced it.
Yeah. And all Trudeau did was just didn't get rid of it. Yeah. He just when he took over, he's like, we'll keep this. This is a good idea. It's working. right? It's also a net zero tax. We don't make money on it. It doesn't enter the general revenue pool. It's to pay for things like to deal with climate change, like, various green programs. And then we get it back in the form of the rebate, which I make money on my carbon tax rebate than what I pay in carbon tax. I figured it out. I crunched the bills for last year, and I made more money on my rebate than I paid.
Yeah.
So thanks for making my groceries cheaper. Because you paid.
The vast majority of Canadians will say the same thing because it's factually correct.
There's a calculator you can go where you can put in all your gas usage from car to home to propane to whatever, and you say your province and if you're single or married, and it will tell you if you made money or not.
Well, I'm sure I'll make money because since I sold my car in October, I don't drive anymore.
We moved to a heat pump last month for the first month ever. It's like we emitted 0 carbon from our house. We didn't use 1 drop of natural gas. Like us, we get to choose how much tax we pay.
Yeah, and let's be honest, we're all seemingly in a privileged position to be able to do this. Yes. We're doing a heat pump here next year as well for that exact reason, to do our part. But there are people who don't have that luxury, right? That are having to pay that extra 14 cents per liter on their gas. Yes, that adds up. It's an extra $2 to $3 on a fill up, right? That does add up. And those are the people I feel for. And those are the people that the Conservatives are targeting with this Axe the Tax message, because they see it. They don't see the rebates because either they don't file their taxes or they owe money to the CRA. So the CRA takes that money in order to pay off their debt. So they never see it, right? So they don't see the rebates, but then they're also paying the tax. I get the outrage by it. I get it. But it's just one of those things that eventually people will understand that this is important to do. So.
But even on that, right, there's an inconsistency because the Prime Minister and the party recognize that at least for Canadians that are using home heating fuel, that this is a thing. So they've suspended that for 3 years and are essentially giving them heat pumps for free. And the Conservatives are mad about that too.
There's nothing that they can do that they won't be mad about.
Of course.
It's one of those things, and I always tell people it's a net zero tax. We don't make money on it. It's not. This isn't paying, and I'm putting a political jab at Justin Trudeau here. This isn't paying for his vacations, apparently, that they seem to think is happening. This isn't paying for the vacation. He's not taking the carbon tax money and going to Jamaica. That's just not what's happening here. It's a net zero tax, and it only applies to people where the provincial government hasn't done shit. Pardon my language to deal with that, but.
Well, yeah, it's like if our premiers are not going, this is the thing that we've been saying on the show a lot, is there's a dynamic in Canada where we have 13 provincial and territorial premiers, because territorial premiers are not so much participating in this. It really is our provincial premiers.
Well, they can't. They're just they're not a
but
province.
But it's 10 against 1. Right now we have 7 of them who are Conservative. Probably 6 out of the 7 who are doing a shit job. Prince Edward Island excluded. Right?
Yeah.
And they are literally pointing the finger at the federal government. Everything that is going wrong in your life, everything that is going wrong in our province is Trudeau's fault. And they're getting the help of Poilievre. But healthcare, if you're not happy with it, that's a premier's responsibility. If you are paying if you're paying the federal backstop on the carbon tax, that's because your premier was too lazy to get off their damn ass to do the bare minimum to make sure you don't pay it.
Stroke of a pen, tomorrow, gone. It's that simple to get rid of it.
Right.
And that's Continue, please.
Housing. It's because Sheila Kopp said on Power and Politics the other day, because for the last 20 years, and then some, premiers have just stopped funding it, especially affordable housing. That started federally, it started way back in the days of Mulroney. Yes. And as Sean Fraser, we showed a clip yesterday, admitted the Liberals didn't do their job either, back in the days of Chrétien and Martin. Yes. And then Harper came in and then gutted everything else that was unaffordable. Like some of these programs, he gutted 100%, some of them 93%, 90 to 95%, but just cut them. Yes. and then said, hey, I'm pumping another $7.8 billion or something like that into housing, and then directed 281% of more of that towards people that were middle and high income than the people who couldn't afford. Like, it's no wonder we're in this mess. It didn't happen overnight. It was 20 years of neglect. But once again, it is the premiers who did not do the funding. So it's like all these things that people are angry about, really angry. I can't find a house. This, university education is going up because you haven't funded universities, and then you decided to rely on people who are from out of country to fund it.
Yeah.
And now there's a cap, and now all of a sudden, oh my God, the bottom fell out because we're going to cap things by 1/3. Where's the money going to come from? Well, maybe you should have been funding it all along. In Quebec, the thing that did Jean Charest in, this is when the students started protesting because he said, oh, you know what? We decided that we weren't going to raise tuition for the last 12 years because we thought that was the way to get our votes. And there's no province in Canada where the students are more organized and vocal than in Quebec. So, yeah, you know what? We're going to do that all in one shot. We're going to do all the 10 years that we didn't do. We're going to do it all right now. Yes. And then he tried to take on the kids, and then he tried to make their protests illegal, which really like this.
And do that.
Where is he today?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a wild time.
So, but these are all premier things.
Yeah, my institution that I went to in Kingston, Queens, is apparently broke, which is news to me because I gave them a stupid amount of money for my education. But and now they're talking about joining classes with McGill, their arch rival down the highway. It's like, what are you doing? I would be devastated if I put all my passion into this institution and then you partner with our rival institution and I would have to do online classes from Montreal, right? Like, that's not what I'm paying for. But they're broke, and I don't get it. Like, I went to school a long time ago, so it was a different time, but it was like they put all these, and I talked to international students then too, and they would pay triple the amount that I was paying for tuition and all that stuff, which makes sense because taxes help pay for tuition and blah, 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 blah. Like there's an argument for it. But yeah, like you said, the bottom fell out when they capped it. And all these universities that are in abandoned malls in whatever city or town you live in are freaking out because that's their only funding source is these students coming from wherever in the world. So
Kingston's where I'm located right now, and it's just it's
where I'm from.
Yeah.
That area.
Love it here.
It's astonishing to me though that Queens would say they're broke because Queens has traditionally been one of the richest universities in the country. So much so that they insure themselves.
Yeah, and they have their own. You would know this living in K-Town. They have basically their own district that the police and everybody just don't touch.
That's right.
The hospital university district down there is like Kingston Police is still the jurisdiction of that, but they kind of let campus security take care of most issues there and only step in when there's a serious issue that they need to step in. Like Kingston's pretty autonomous and they need Queens, and Kingston absolutely needs Queens to succeed. So I'm nervous because it's like, is my university broke? Like, is that what's going on here, or is there something more to this that we're not?
There's got to be something more to it because trust me when I say this, I have done a lot of work at Queens over the last few years. Not in the last two, but prior to that, I was back and forth to Kingston on a weekly basis, doing work at Queens University, doing rewiring buildings, putting in fiber networks, putting in LED video walls, putting in new camera conferencing equipment. They've got money. So this is now admittedly that's 2+ years ago, but did they burn through all that cash in 2+ years? I doubt that.
I haven't been home in years, so I don't know really what's going on, but seeing people go in, my younger cousins are all in the institution right now going through school, and they're paying a lot more money than I paid for tuition. So they're definitely still collecting, but I don't know. I mean, it makes sense as Ellen's there staying that they did get, it has gone down, and I know their course load has decreased a lot. Their what is it? Their health sciences wing. They got rid of a bunch of corners of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
It
That's
just it
different.
strikes me as it's like I guess it's a shock to my system is what it is.
Well, it's not
You know.
like we haven't had a university already sort of go bankrupt in Ontario, right?
Mhm.
Laurentian
know
had a
that.
huge problem in
that's right.
Sudbury.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a smaller institution too. That's
Good school though with a great reputation.
But
I
they
know a
cut
lot
like
of people who went there.
they cut stuff like their like midwifery program and their Indigenous social service like was the only one
Mhm.
like vital, really, really important programs, groundbreaking programs. And they're just gone.
Well, that's I think it boils down to, and I'm gonna make up something here, if you will. It's the Doug Ford keep them drunk, high, and dumb, so they'll vote for us again. Because there are 14 cannabis stores within a 1.2 kilometer radius of my apartment.
And you can get beer in grocery store or in corner store
soon. Well, 2026, but
Well,
conveniently right when the election is.
Yeah. I'm noticing. Yeah, I'm noticing this trend because we're talking about premiers being the problem. That there seems to be this whole like pronouns thing and straws and beer
Oh,
in
the
stores.
straws. The straws.
Beer in stores and all that kind of stuff. And it's sort of like, I mean, I saw the picture. Like she's got this straw down here, like this, all the way down like this, and she's literally. She's literally, she's literally has a Canada, like literally sucking Canada dry. Literally sucking Canada dry.
I didn't make that comparison.
The image that she's putting up, I'll try to find it and put it up there. But it seems like they are making a big deal of patting themselves on the back for controlling that tiny, tiny, tiny little things they can, like bringing back straws and bringing you beer, because they literally have no answers on the big stuff like rent and healthcare and tuition.
But Toronto's
like there's a bait and switch here.
Yeah. It's all passion projects that look good, right? And there's that famous video that came out of Hamilton of the individual when they said, "Oh, maybe we should lower consumption to like less than 2 beers a day," and he had a conniption. Because he's like, nobody can drink 2 beers a day, and the Conservatives loved that, right? Because it was easy to farm off of that. It's like the highway in Toronto that benefits nobody. That Highway 413 doesn't benefit anybody who lives in GTA because it doesn't go around. It stops at the 400. So cool, you're bypassing Toronto traffic until you get to the 400, and you still have the rest of
Toronto traffic.
So like. It's a joke, and it only benefits. Even if you talk to people in Brampton, which it's benefiting the most, people don't want it. It's like, and it's these tiny little things like the highway, the straws. Like I hate paper straws. I hate them with a passion, but I understand why they exist. So I put up with them because that's what we do in life. But it's just like it's these passion projects. Like I don't care that I can get a beer in a corner store in 2026. Like I don't care. Like, give me better healthcare, please. Like, my emergency room was closed last month because of lack of staffing.
That's bad. Here we go.
Right.
There she is, literally sucking Canada dry.
Is that the caption, or is that just what's implied?
That's that's what we're implying.
Yes. But come on, man.
Yeah.
Come on, like literally. If it like says, "Hey, let's make it Canada Dry," so it looks like I'm promoting a Canadian product. It's like you do realize you just showed like, "Hey, my EA, go find the biggest, big ass, longest straw I can find, so I don't have to bend."
They did that thing we did as kids, where you tie them all together. You
put them all together, right?
Yeah.
So so either they went and tried to find like this huge novelty straw. So let's pay extra to find this huge novelty straw rather than using a regular one. Or, hey, we only need one really for this photo shoot, but hey, let's buy 5 or 6 or 7 just because we can be dicks about this, like this. And then, like, hey, let's take a can of Canada Dry. It was like, there's no, but like either they did that on purpose to send that, or like somebody in their comms department is like, wait a minute, do you realize that this might be, no, we're going ahead with this? Okay, like this,
and I'm sitting there like a mini fridge and just grab the first thing.
And then I'm sitting there and I'm going like, you do realize that you can just like lift the can to your mouth, right? and
That's a
not
normal
need a
person
straw
does.
at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah.
I'm not like, and then I mentioned that, but it's, oh yeah, so all the people who are disabled, I guess, that need a straw, they can't, like, not saying
The fucking straw man.
we do have alternatives. Yeah, literally straw man. We do have
Yeah.
alternatives like this, but for the overwhelming majority of us, you do realize that we could just like lift the can.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Right?
I typically do. But sometimes they give me a straw at a restaurant, and I'm like, okay, I'll use a straw because it may be a little bit more polite, a little bit more courteous, a little bit whatever. Who cares? It's just not that big of a deal. Like, there's straws. Just there's bigger things in life and in our provinces, respectively, that we need to deal with.
Elaine's
Not
comment
straws.
Elaine's comment here is accurate because I remember paper straws when I was a kid in the 70s. I remember them. And all of a sudden, we can't have plastic straws anymore. Now, that being said, there are individuals who need like a bendy straw, right? Well, they have silicone and they have stainless steel and apparently glass I'm just learning about, which benefit those individuals who maybe are in a mobility device of some type or have limited dexterity, which they need a bendy straw. Well, they have, like I said, silicone and stainless steel, and I see those everywhere now.
Yeah.
So,
Dollar store has the whole aisle of that.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
even have silicone straws.
So, do I like paper straws? Not really. Is it going to affect my life negatively so much that I have to scream about it in the streets of Ottawa and protest on Parliament Hill? No.
When it's a provincial issue.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Do you know anything about civics?
Oh no, you're mad about this thing? That's provincial. Go to Ottawa.
Oh my God. There's something I'd like to read in here. It came out today, or yesterday. Sorry, it's Max Fawcett, who we like,
yes,
very much here at the National Observer, and I am actually really happy because I have not seen it anywhere in the press. This is the first time, but it's almost becoming a slogan here on the show. Our premiers are the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And he actually has an opinion piece that says the provinces are trying to break Canada. Yeah. I like to read it in and get your thoughts on it, JB. Mm-hmm. Of all Pierre Poilievre's familiar slogans, there's one that stands above the rest. Canada is broken. There's no shortage of irony there, not least because what little we know of his proposed plans and policies revolve almost exclusively around breaking things, whether it's the CBC or Canada's climate change policies. But the most ironic thing of all is that while Poilievre pretends Justin Trudeau's Liberals are breaking the country, its Conservative premiers are busy doing exactly that. Take the federal government's childcare agreement, one that provinces like Ontario and Alberta seemed determined to undermine with deliberate mismanagement of the money they've been given. While Ottawa will send $3.8 billion to the Alberta government over 5 years to support its childcare ambitions, the provincial government hasn't put a single additional dollar of its own. That's not all. According to Crystal Churchill, the chair of the Association of Alberta Childcare Entrepreneurs, the Alberta government is effectively asking childcare providers to lend it money every month. Quote, asking operators to carry 85% of the revenue and wait 40 to 45 days to get it back is putting them in the position where they can't pay rent on February 1st, she told. They're basically asking for the actual daycare centers to float the province here. She told CBC's Matt Galloway, if you wanted to deliberately undermine the federal government's goals, this would be a pretty good way to do it. But while this might be the most galling example of a provincial government trying to break some key aspects of our country, it's hardly the only one. There's also healthcare, where the Ford government has been consistently underfunding Ontario's system, which appears to be even more precariously perched on the brink of total collapse. That might suit the Ford government just fine, but given its obvious interest in bringing more private sector activity into the system. But other Conservative governments across the country, from Alberta to Saskatchewan to the Maritimes, appearing to be following similar playbooks. On housing, the provinces, outside of British Columbia, keep adding fuel to the fire the federal government is desperately trying to extinguish. In 2023, Ontario saw 85,770 housing starts, a 7% decrease from the previous year, and just 78% of its stated goal of 110,000 new homes. That's because, according to a number of Ontario municipal leaders, the province has effectively set them up to fail by not supporting the infrastructure needed to actually enable growth and new construction. So we're just not going to build infrastructure around the houses that you need to have for people to actually live in them. There you go. They're not helping on the demand side of the equation either. By admitting an ever-increasing volume of international students, 240,000 in each of the last 2 years in Ontario alone, they're adding another source of demand for housing, one that's putting even more strain on rental markets that can't handle much more of it. So why are they bringing so many of these students into the province? Because they help fill the gap in the budgets of the province's post-secondary institutions the Ford government has created over the last 6 years. According to Alex Usher, the president of Higher Education Strategy Associates, the combination of a funding cap and a 10% tuition cut has meant Ontario post-secondary institutions have faced an effective cut of 31% in so-called government-controlled income since Ford came to office in 2017. Again, I'll repeat that, a 31% cut since 2017.
That's massive.
In an inflationary period, by the way. Not surprisingly, those institutions tried to backfill that with revenue from international students who can be charged nearly 6 times as much for tuition as their domestic counterparts. And of course, that means the number of spaces available for Canadians who would want to go to those institutions also get reduced. So you could be graduating with high grades and still not get in because, well, sorry, we need to give the spot to an international student because they'll pay 6 times more to keep this damn place running than you will. According to the 2022 Auditor General's report in Ontario, international students made up 17% of enrollment and 45% of tuition in 2021, numbers that are certainly higher today. Even then, that hasn't prevented blue-chip institutions like Queen's from being forced to make major cuts to faculty and programs, ones that were announced before the federal government decided to chop the province's allotment of international student approvals in half. Those cuts, in other words, could be about to get a whole lot bigger. And then, of course, there's the there's the ongoing effort by prairie premiers to filibuster any federal policy on climate change and their willingness to openly defy the law in order to do it. Perhaps they learned from Quebec here, which has openly flouted federal authority on a number of occasions with almost no pushback from anyone at that level of government opposition. Whether it's Alberta's Sovereignty Act, Scott Moe's attempt to refuse to collect the federal carbon tax on natural gas heating, or Quebec's preemptive use of the notwithstanding clause on its draconian language legislation, there is a growing willingness on the part of conservative provincial governments to test the strength of our national fabric and maybe even tear it. This should be an obvious place for the Trudeau Liberals to mount some sort of counterattack. Liberal governments have done well in the past when they go to bat for Canada. Underscoring the role that conservative provincial governments are playing in trying to break the country could help them use Poilievre's own narrative against him. By framing the next election as a choice between those who want to keep building our country and those who are trying to break it, the Liberals might just be able to get out from under their own baggage. Thoughts?
I mean, Max hits the nail on the head there, as he usually does, right? He explains it perfectly. It's a perfect sort of summary of the kind of debauchery that we get sometimes from our respected premiers. And the Liberals, to Max's point, the Liberals need Doug Ford, and there's a reason for that, because Ontario is an anti-bellwether. So whoever is the leading party, so if the Liberals are in power, they typically elect a conservative premier, and then it switches, right? We're kind of that anti-bellwether. So as long as Doug Ford is being Doug Ford, that is going to benefit Justin Trudeau on the federal level. So I understand why Trudeau isn't stepping in on Doug Ford, because as much as you may think they politically disagree, which they do, Trudeau is smarter than Ford and understands that he needs Ford to be this useful idiot in Ontario, because when it come election time next year, they're going to march into the GTA and be like, see how bad it is? Vote for us. We'll try to make it better. Right. That's the kind of thought.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but during the last federal election, didn't they send Ford to the cottage for 2 months?
Yep. Yeah. Scheer said, hey, but take this one, take a lap on this one, man. Just like, go enjoy your summer. We'll take care of the campaign. I think it was Scheer or O'Toole, whoever's last.
One of them.
O'Toole. Yeah.
O'Toole was last.
Yeah.
They didn't want him around at all because they knew he would basically torpedo their campaign.
Which, again, because post-pandemic, people were upset with the way Ontario was handling things, right? 2021 was still pandemic times, right? So they needed Ford just to sit this one out, because him in public wasn't going to look good. So,
I think they did something that's similar to Jason Kenney in Alberta. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, it happens all the time when the Conservatives are now in campaign mode, like actual campaign mode, like Pierre Poilievre has been in campaign mode since he took his first breath. But it's when they're in campaign mode, like the actual campaign is written, the premiers take a step back and hide in their shadows while the federal campaign is on a rampage. So,
and it seems that that's happening again. Another person on the web that we like, the Frank Dominic,
good friend.
Yes,
Good
has
guy.
been posting about how there seems to be another civil war about to start within the Canadian Conservative movement, particular in Ontario. Now, one of the reasons this has happened is the recent decision in Ontario, I think it is, to allow Manulife insurance to give the high revenue drugs to specifically just one chain. And it seems that there's a member of the federal Conservative Party who really doesn't like it. Ryan Williams posted this video saying Canadians shouldn't have to pay higher prices or have access to drugs based on the grocery store they shop. Manulife will give sole access to drugs for Crohn's, hepatitis C, and cancer to Loblaws, for which Jenny Byrne, we just found out, is a lobbyist.
In Ontario.
Yes. File under inconvenient truths like this. But here we have a federal conservative saying, hey, wait a minute. You can't give all the drugs to Loblaws, which my boss, Jenny Byrne, lobbies for in Ontario. But you can't do that in Ontario. Hey, Doug Ford. And it's like, oh, but isn't that a provincial matter? And aren't you conservatives? And well, and as that is going on, Frank Dominic points this out to us, Mr. Grizzly.
Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives don't want to get Doug Ford's stink on them. With Pierre Poilievre and the federal Conservatives on the rise and people expecting a Doug Ford crash at some point in the future with those two elections only being a year apart, a lot of people are wondering, are Doug Ford's PC MPPs planning on jumping ship to the Conservative federal level? And while many of them may want to, Pierre's Conservatives don't seem keen on picking up Doug Ford's table scraps. Now there's a few exceptions there. Everybody wants Monty McNaughton, who I have said time and time again was easily the most competent, if not the only competent member of Doug Ford's entire government, with Pierre and his Conservatives wanting to stay far away from anybody associated with Doug Ford's Greenbelt scandal. Other MPPs who were rumored to be jumping ship included Parm Gill, Pradmeet Zakaria, and Stan Cho, three ministers who have been unscathed by Ford scandals, with Parm Gill having previously served as an MP under Harper. And Parm Gill is a great example about how people mostly vote for parties and not for the MPPs or MPs, because he is completely absent from his local community. But he has already announced that he is jumping ship and he will be running for the federal Conservatives. The Conservatives have also picked up former PC MPP Roman Baber, who was removed from Ford's government due to his anti-COVID lockdown stances. And the Conservatives have also picked up Sunil Javani, who was previously fired from the Ford government for being critical of school closures during COVID. And honestly, I don't blame Pierre and the federal Conservatives for not wanting to be associated with Doug Ford and his brand of conservatism. I mean, mind you, I wouldn't want to be associated with either types of these Conservatives, but regardless. What do you guys think about the rift between the federal and provincial Conservatives in Ontario? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below.
JB?
One, love Frank. He was one of the first people who messaged me when I started TikTok, being like, when I followed him back, he's like, oh, so cool, thanks for following. Now he's got more followers than me, which is, so he's doing stuff way better than I am. So kudos to Frank for his insight. But it's kind of just overarching. It's the overarching problem with conservatism in this country. It doesn't know what to do. Parm Gill, knowing people in that region where Parm Gill represents, they don't like Parm, but yet Parm bounces back and forth between federal, provincial, because Parm just wants to stay in power, and they will stay where they are if it keeps giving them power over this. And Doug Ford is going to have a crash. I don't think he's winning in 2026. I think Bonnie Crombie is just going to, Bonnie Crombie is that red Tory, right? That probably conservative back in the 90s, if you look at the traditional progressive conservatives at that time, but now is more liberal based off of the shift that the Conservative Party did. Bonnie Crombie's probably going to win. And that upsets me as an NDP supporter and a former resident of Marit Stiles' riding in Davenport in Toronto, where I used to live. You know, I helped Marit with her leadership campaign. Like, I was helping her. So it pains me to say that, but Bonnie Crombie can resonate more with the 905. And unfortunately, to my friends in Ottawa, You can't win Ontario unless you win the 905. That's just the way it is. There's way more seats than you could ever get in something like Ottawa or Sudbury or London in that region. So you need it. And the federal Conservatives also need that too. And after Pierre's recent attack at Quebec, both at the mayors of both Quebec City and Montreal, but now also against Blanchette, who, while you might not be a Bloc Québécois supporter, you don't attack the French. The French are the French. You leave them be. So Pierre's not winning Quebec. We know that. We knew that a long time ago. He's not winning the female vote.
No.
So the only thing he has is the 905. That's what's going to win Pierre Poilievre an election in 2025, is the 905. But in order for that to happen, Doug Ford needs to shut up and just not touch his campaign. Because the second Doug Ford starts to meddle in with that federal campaign, he's not winning the 905. So what do we do? Just wait and see? Wait, inevitably implode? Or
as PM Godin mentions here, it's also, you want to see a civil war in Conservative ranks. Breaking news: at least 3 MLAs quit Higgs for the next election in New Brunswick, and it's not like he hasn't lost 6 already.
Yeah,
who just walked out. Well, then this from Rhiannon, there will be a lot of Conservatives losing in the future. I think Newfoundland flipped a by-election that has been Conservative for 20 years.
So I wrote an article for that on my Substack about that by-election, because that by-election is fascinating to me. Yes, it's provincial politics. Yes, it's not the federal campaign, but Newfoundland and Labrador is a liberal region. So for them to have a Conservative pocket is rare. So for this Conservative safe seat that all the by-election polls were saying that this seat is going to be 20-30 points for the respected Conservative, for them to lose from a grassroots candidate, like a local liberal that stepped up and took that, is a precursor to what is going to happen with conservatism in this country. Is when enough people start to see the BS that is being pushed around, they are going to step up. And the next one to watch is Durham. This is Aaron O'Toole's old riding. Durham in the GTA, 905, I'll remind you, is this is a Conservative safe seat.
2 decades.
Ever since I've been alive and following politics, this has been a Conservative seat. Always has been, always will be. A lot of blue-collar workers in Durham. And they've picked the guy that worked for Bell Media that got fired for bringing anti-vax people on his show to represent Durham. So if you want a test of how this Conservative rage farming machine is working, watch the Durham election, because 2 things are either going to happen. He's going to win by a landslide, and that validates the polls that this is the 905 is thinking more conservative and accepting the extreme message that Pierre Poilievre is pushing. Or their margin is going to slip. It's still going to go conservative, but they're only going to win by like 5 points or like 4 points. And that should scare Pierre Poilievre, because in the ridings like Scarborough Centre, which is slated to go conservative, which is in Toronto, that you're not going to win that riding at that point. If the rest of the 905 is flipping and not buying into the message, you're not going to win these seats that you need to flip, like Scarborough Centre, like Markham, like Richmond Hill, like these liberal seats that they need to flip to win.
And that by-election is March 4th, and there's still a year and a half before the federal election, and time is not Poilievre's friend.
No. And if they can't win then, if they do win, but by a small margin, that the liberals need to watch that by-election, even if they lose it, and go and attack it when it fails for him. So
because a year and a half from now, Pierre Poilievre is not going to have the inflation argument. That's pretty much going to be wrestled.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's at 3. It vacillates between 3.1 and 3.4 right now, depending on whether or not you have a good month or a bad month. But the Bank of Canada range is in the 2%. So we're like pretty much there. If the Bank of Canada interest rate goes down 1% or 1.5% between now and the next election, that doesn't help Poilievre's case either. These are all things that could likely happen. Like these 2 horses that he's been beating to death, giving CPR to, and then beating them again, right, for the last 2 years, are not going to be there come election time.
Yeah.
Everybody goes like, the liberals need to call an election now. There's no liberal in their right mind that's going to call an election during inflation.
And when they're polling down 15 points.
Right. It's like, that's not going to happen. And that by-election in Newfoundland, turnout for the by-election was almost the same as it was for the actual provincial election. And the conservative candidate that was predicted, like right up to the end, to win that, like you go to 338 Canada, and still it says it's conservative safe seat.
Safe hold. Yeah.
He
Like they
lost
thought it was
by over 18%.
Yeah, it's just, and by-elections are by-elections, right? They don't have the same level of press and publication that a general gets. But they're amazing precursors. And not only by-elections, but provincial elections, but also municipal elections, right? Toronto just elected Olivia Chow after years of Tory mayorship. Conservative, that's the ex-executive for Rogers.
Yes.
Not a progressive by any sense of the stretch.
No.
He elected Olivia Chow, the progressive, Jack Layton's widow, to be the mayor.
Talk about taking a left turn, pardon the pun, but
yeah. Like,
but also,
and what is she doing? She's offloading the DVP and the Gardiner back to the province, saving the city billions of dollars. She's doing a property tax increase that is unpopular among conservatives in Toronto, but is still lower than our York region and Peel region counterparts. So Toronto still pays lower property tax than everybody else does. And that's going to help pay for the millions of homes she needs to build just with those two initiatives. Like, it's crazy. I'm getting off topic, but my point is like that kind of stuff is going to sit with voters. So that 905 voter that now moved from Toronto to Vaughan to save money to get out of the city is now seeing that their Toronto friends are now saving more money and getting homes built. And then a federal campaign comes along and be like, we're going to axe the tax. Be like, okay, but that progressive just south of me just built a bunch of homes. So like, what are you doing? Right? Like, so.
And the thing I find interesting about the Newfoundland by-election is that the Newfoundland, Labrador, is the only province that has a Liberal provincial government, and usually in a by-election,
it flips.
It's an expression of frustration with the government, like as if a seat's going to flip. This one seat was slated to go conservative, and it went in favor of the actual current government.
Yeah, that was not a sign on the wall, right? We didn't see that coming. The polls predicted the opposite.
Yeah, and that's what I love about by-elections, because they can happen at any time in any region, and it's so unexpected. It's not like the States that if you're doing a special election, it has to be on November 3rd or 5th every year, right? They don't wait. Like it's which is fine, and it works for campaigning, so you know when it's campaign season. But I get the reasoning behind it. But that's what I love. It could be like the middle of August, and a by-election will get called because some MP or MPP resigned, so they need to fill the seat. Right. And the government, and this is a federal control, and obviously the premiers in the respective province at the provincial level gets to control when those by-elections are. So it can be used as a tool to see. And that Durham election was 100% called by Trudeau for that date to get a precursor, an actual election about how conservatives are doing in a very critical region of this country for votes. It was strategic. Trudeau did that strategically. So.
Yeah, because you have a 6-month window, I think, to call one when somebody.
And you can do it whenever. You can do it immediately, or you could wait until it's politically more advantageous for you to call that by-election. So
I guess, or like I said, to get data.
Yeah. All right. Interesting comment here from Linda M. If John Tory hadn't tanked Toronto's financials, she wouldn't have needed to do that big tax increase. And every mayor of Toronto has been reluctant to raise property taxes for 20 years?
2006, I think, was the last big one.
Okay, so 18 years?
Yeah.
And
that was the last big one, but yeah.
The city, as we all know, is broke and has been for a long time.
Yeah. Well, offloading the Gardiner and the DVP, best thing they could have done.
Yeah.
That should have been an Ontario jurisdiction in the first place. And Toronto bought it off of Ontario when they were broke, because they were just doing a favor to the Ontario government, and we gave it back. We're like, we're done with this. It's crumbling. We can't pay for it. And our city is broke. And the police want more money, which they didn't get, which I love that about Olivia Chow, was the police asked for all this more money, and Olivia Chow just didn't give it to them. She's like, nah, I'm going to build houses instead. Call me next year when we do our budget next year. It's like, perfect. Like, that's what you do. Right. So, yeah. And of course, the police union's freaking out. But
And I have a lot of friends and family members that are some are active officers in RCMP, some are retired OPP, some are city police officers, and you know, I don't subscribe to the ACAB, right? ACAB, all cops are bastards. I don't subscribe to that. I never have. I never will. There are, just like any other profession, politics, business, policing, there are assholes in every profession. And the assholes, like any squeaky wheel, is the one that often gets the spotlight, not the grease in this case. So you got a couple of bad cops in an organization somewhere in a municipality or a city or provincially or even federally in the RCMP. And all of a sudden, all cops are bastards? Come on. I can't subscribe to that. Now, does the city of Toronto need to increase their policing budget? I certainly don't think so. I don't think so.
As somebody who lives here, no, they're fine.
Yeah, I think they're fine.
There's a lot of cops. There's a lot of cops. Just do have any incident anywhere in Toronto, I just look at the police response.
Yeah.
It's hefty.
Well, and let's also consider that
for the right reasons, Toronto, I should say.
The crime rate in Toronto for a city of, what's the GTA, 6, 7, 8 million?
Depends where you draw the lines, but around there. Yeah.
Around 8 million. There's 16 million people in Ontario. So Toronto's at least, the GTA is 50% of it, easily. Yeah. So let's say a city of 8 million people. Now I'm going to include Hamilton, which is its own municipality. It has its own police force, of course, but there's 500,000 people in Hamilton. But Mississauga, Scarberia, all the way up to Barrie,
Peel region,
right.
They're all their own police, but yes, it's all connected.
It's all connected. And you look at how low the crime rate is, gun crimes, murder. I mean, for a city of that size, for a metropolitan area of that size, statistically speaking, it's incredibly low.
It's super safe. I had no problem when I lived downtown, walking home from a night out of town, and it'd be 2 a.m, and I'm walking through the streets alone, and I was never afraid. I was never confronted. I never had any crime. And this is the funny thing, is I've witnessed violence. I was the chief witness for a murder case in Toronto many years ago, because I was walking my dog and I watched somebody get shot right in front of me. I was the only one who saw it. So I've witnessed it, and I still would walk down the streets of Toronto at night alone. Like, now, obviously, I'm privileged being a guy, so I don't have the same fear and
as a woman
and risk factors,
or a person of color. Yeah,
right, 100%. I'm acknowledging my privilege in this situation. But my point is that I could then, if I did have a friend with me, say it's a woman or a person of color, I know that they would still feel comfortable, even in a group, walking through the city, right? It is less, I can't speak for them, but there is no, like, it is a very safe city. I always tell people that. You may see on CP, turn on CP24, person shot here, person hit by a car here, they found this body here. Yeah, but when you have the millions of people in a city, that's going to happen. Go to Belleville, Ontario. Go to Belleville, Ontario, and look at their crime rate, and then get back to me, because it's higher.
Yeah, it is. Per capita, it's much higher.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that segues into something that happened yesterday. And this probably will have to be our final point before we have to go here. But Mr. Grizzly, if you will put it up. Yesterday in Toronto, I think there was a 48-year-old man who had a syringe attack, basically on someone. You have Joe Warmington, like, random syringe attack shows Toronto now a dangerous city. Okay, we just had this talk about how, based on population, whatnot. And here we go, Mr. Mr. Grizzly, if you would, Pierre Poilievre again.
I'll do the Pierre voice.
Yes, please.
Terrifying random violent attack with a used needle, not in the middle of the night, but in broad daylight. Crime and chaos, drugs and disorder. 8 years of Trudeau.
For a municipal policing issue in the city of Toronto.
Now, here's the thing, right? Number one, hey, Canada, did something tragic happen to your life? Don't worry. Just sit back and count to 10, and Pierre Poilievre will be right there to exploit it for you. All right? Number two, I am old enough to remember back in the days of the HIV/AIDS crisis. Syringe attacks. They're not new.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah,
this,
same with
we hear
knife
it
violence.
during the whole COVID thing. I guess there were some people like would attack some nurses in hospitals. Well, syringe attacks are not a new thing, but apparently these have only been happening in the last 8 years, and this is like violent crime, and this is just like, but there's literally nobody's personal tragedy or personal situation he will not exploit. You're homeless, you live in a tent. Hey, he's going to bring a camera over there and do a video because there's a housing problem. Hey, he's going to find a house that he thinks looks like a shack. He's going to film it and say, hey, you live there. So
Yeah, it's not.
someone dies, a homeless man dies on the street. It's like this. Oh my God, the homeless man died on the street alone. Isn't that terrible? That's where it should stop.
Mm-hmm.
8 years of Justin Trudeau.
It is tragic.
But if you add 8 years of Justin Trudeau at the end of that, it's like, you don't care about that homeless man.
Yeah.
Like you've just shown you did not care. Like it's like, gee, he died with nobody to pay his last respects like this. And if you just stopped it there, that becomes about it's about the homeless man and the homeless situation. And then you add life under Trudeau like this. You didn't care about that homeless man. You only cared about using the death of that homeless man to bash your opponent, to score points on Twitter, which is not real life.
Well, it was like a couple months ago. It was about a year ago, actually. Now there was a video that was surfacing of a teenager on a Toronto City bus, TTC bus, lit a big firework off on the bus, crowded bus, rush hour bus, and everybody had to get off the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And that kid got charged and I'm assuming is having his day in court or had his day in court under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. He's going through the system to address that crime that he did. But as somebody who lives in Toronto and takes transit, you know how many times I've had to get off a bus because somebody did something stupid on it? Or how many times like I've been on a subway train and they're like, hey, due to an issue at the station in front of us, we have to end the service here. It happens all the time. Go onto Twitter and go to the TTC service alerts right now and look at it. And you'll see route whatever holding here due to a security issue. Happens all the damn time. And it happened before Trudeau was prime minister, because that's what happens in urban settings. Is when you pack a bunch of people into a space, there's going to be crime from time to time. But in the end,
especially people suffering from poverty.
Exactly. Because that's the cost of poverty. When you make people poor, Thomas More, a 16th century scholar, said it best, is that no matter what you do, you will never stop people from committing crimes of necessity.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take away people's ability to get necessities, they will commit crimes to do it. To talk about the ethical wounds of convicting a mother stealing a loaf of bread to feed her family.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, is that of public interest? Yes, it's a crime. But is it something that we should really be clogging our criminal system up with? I don't think so, right? I would rather go after the people importing the pounds and pounds of fentanyl into our country. Go after those cartels. Go after any sort of violent crime, domestic crime, all that stuff we should be looking into, right? Crime is going to happen and we need to fight it. But at the same time, it's better fought with prevention than reaction. So.
Agreed. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
You put this up, Mr. Grizzly, because I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is actually one of our viewers, Kit Angela, said, these 4 photos are pretty self-explanatory. Andrea Horvath, Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, Ford Nation, Alex from Barrie. Do not blame the crime rate on your people. Blame it on yourselves. You know damn well what you're doing is murderous for all of society. CMHA Ontario will fix it now. And I'm sitting there like this. If you won't do the minimum to take care of your people, like house them, you can't complain about the crime rate. People will do what they have to survive.
Period.
You want to take care of the crime rate, house people. Feed them.
UBI now.
That's a good segue. Because it's a really good segue. Look at you, Paul. It's like you're a professional.
Now, before we go, however, we have you have a little announcement.
Yeah, I will be.
Yes.
I've already announced it. So for those who follow me, you already know. But
This is
on
exciting.
May 5th, May the 4th, May the 4th be with you, Star Wars Day. I will be doing a TED Talk, a TEDx talk in one and only Grand Prairie, Alberta, is where they're doing this TED event, which is really interesting. But they do an event there every 4 years, so it's not they've done it before. It is an event called the theme of it is what if. So that's a lot of speakers talking about the what ifs of our country over the next 5, 10, 15 years. So what can we do now that would change? So there's a climate change talk coming on to talk about what if we did this with climate change. And I've been asked to do a talk on a universal basic income or a broader basic income conversation. If you don't know, I've been done several videos about that and have gotten a lot of press around the push towards a basic income in Canada. Senate Bill S233 is currently going through the motions in our government. So this isn't an idea that is like a theory. This is something that we're actually exploring. This is something that could be happening via even as early as next year. We could start to see payments in our accounts. So
it's proven to have, it works. Everywhere they've done it, it works.
Only the 320, I got to memorize my speech, 326 pilot projects around the world in the last 35 years for a basic income. And Iran has been doing it since 2011. And there's been other programs in Ireland and Sweden and Finland. Like there's so many use cases. So we're at the point where we are now starting to execute it. We are looking at what is the right path forward for this. It is the only path forward for us. And conservatives are for it. Liberals are for it. New Democrats are for it. This is a bipartisan thing. So if you're a conservative screaming at your screen, oh, free money, blah, blah, blah. Great, cool. Just listen, because you're actually probably going to like this. So, yes, May the 4th, Grand Prairie, Alberta. If you live in the area, tickets actually go on sale on the 4th of February. So Saturday, Sunday, Monday, tickets go on sale. So if you live in the area and you want to grab tickets are very limited. But I will be posting the full TED Talk on my respected YouTube channel, as well as my TikTok and all my socials. So if you miss it, no worries. You'll get to see it. So yes, I'm super excited about that. And that's
awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Now I'm
there-
going to write it one. Presentations.
No, I just have to write it.
I have a draft. I had to submit a draft to get approved. So the draft is there. Not good. Needs a lot of work.
It's a draft.
We'll
It's a
circle
first run, right? Yeah.
So, Kits, right there, we just included in the chat a link to parl.ca, the site where it has stuff for Bill S233. The second link I sent you, Mr. Grizzly, to put up there
It's up there.
is the actual text of the bill.
Bill
So if you,
S233.
so you can read what the bill says. And then the next one I'm going to ask you to put up is an actual link to JB's YouTube page.
There we go.
So
That's
that
what I was about to
make it
ask you.
easy for them to go there and
started
subscribe.
the YouTube channel. So like it's fresh. Like I've only started posting on YouTube as of like last month. So please subscribe. If you don't already, I really would appreciate it. One
Just
quick thing
subscribe.
about the S233. Thank you. The S233 bill is a Senate bill. It's not even at the House yet. So there, if you are interested in implementing any sort of basic income, whether it's guaranteed, universal, emergency, whatever you want to call it, write to your MP now saying this is a bill that's probably going to pass the Senate. Please support this. If you support this, I will support you in the next election. However you want to do it. Let's get this to be a bipartisan thing. Let's not make this politically divisive. Let's get conservatives on board with this. Let's get liberals on board with this because it benefits us all. Right?
It benefits us all. That's the thing. It costs us more money to keep people in poverty than it does to actually give them a living income.
Yep.
And as we have said on this show many times, and I'm a huge proponent of UBI because of the fact that the robots are coming to take your job. I'm not making that up. It's not panic speak. It's real between AI and advanced robotics. And have you seen the new Tesla bot?
Yeah. Neuralink is also a thing that's coming.
Like this is
that's
happening
a whole, that's
in
a
our
whole other
lifetime.
episode. At that
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
talking
But I mean,
about
this is happening in real time in our lifetime. A friend of mine who is a programmer said, in 5 years, my job won't exist.
Mhm.
And he's
Journalists
been
are
writing
losing their
code for
jobs.
20 years. He says, in 5 years, it won't exist.
I was a translator.
Yeah. Sports Illustrated just laid off like 70% of their journalists and are using AI to write their stories. Like AI is doing human resources now. So you can apply for a job, it goes through AI, and then it determines the best candidate to interview. So there goes recruiters' jobs. Like it's here now. Like this isn't something that's coming in 5 years. Like
no, it's happening right now. And in There will be millions of people unemployed in the next 5 to 7 years. And we did this last week. We talked about how there is fast food restaurants that are using bots to make and prepare meals. I mean, you already go to a Golden Arches and you don't even go to the counter anymore. You go to a screen, you punch a bunch of numbers, you walk up, you get your order.
I mean, I do like mobile ordering as
I do
somebody
too.
who doesn't like talking to people sometimes.
No, I get it.
Push a button on my phone, it's ready. Thanks.
Well, that's the thing. You just walk in, grab it, and go. I mean,
yeah.
And I use these things too.
Yeah.
But it means we need a UBI because as jobs disappear, and they are disappearing. Mm-hmm. Like you said, 70% of the staff at writers at Sports Illustrated, a magazine that has been famously profitable.
Yeah, they're not hurting.
No,
they're not hurting.
But their shareholders want to squeeze another dollar or two out, so we'll just fire the staff and we'll have computers write it.
Leanne is saying something in the chat I just want to address real quickly. There is, if you go to ubiworks.ca, there is a button you can press where you put your postal code in. At least they used to have it. If not, they still have the template on their website where you can copy and paste that, put in your details, and send that off to your MP. There is a template that they have. That was originally for sending to senators, but since it's now going through the Senate, then we got to shift towards MPs for it. And this is, and to be very clear, this is a framework bill. This isn't the actual basic income bill. This is just the bill to set up the building blocks of building this thing that is a basic income. So we're still a ways out from it being a thing. So.
Yeah. And Senator Kim Pate is the one sponsoring it. So, Kits, we will write her and see if we can try to get her on the show.
I would love that.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
All right.
Be awesome for you guys.
JB, thank you so much for joining us.
Brother. I'm going back to bed. This is way too early for me. It's like, I'm just going to put that out there. I'm going right back to bed. So,
all right.
Yeah. Have a good
sweet
sleep.
dreams of beavers and grizzlies.
Appreciate you. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate it. Take care.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Kits and Cubs. We have to go. So that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. And it was so nice to have a conversation that wasn't angry or a show that wasn't raging. I so needed this. What a light that guy is. I just really enjoyed it.
We like, as we say, we like expertise and intelligence on this show. We like it just in general, but we like to have it on this show. JB is both a well-versed, knowledgeable individual, a critical thinker, and can bring the facts every single time.
Yep. We like informed people.
Yes.
Who use logic and reason and deductive reasoning and who know how to use words and not invent new meanings for words that
I have the best
have existed for hundreds of years and all that kind of stuff. Just and remember, don't vote for assholes or people who insult your intelligence. All right. If you would like to not miss an episode, you do not have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. Just scan that QR code that's under my chin, and that will bring you to our pod page, podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, it comes directly to you. Also, while you are supporting JB's YouTube page, stop by ours as well if you haven't already, True North Eager Beaver Media, and lick, shore, and subscribe. Or like, share, and subscribe, whatever you want to do. We're good with it. Like this. It really helps us out. Thank you so very much. We're growing, and it's thanks to you. We love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much. Oh, Kitla Dam says the Supreme Court is supposed to issue its decision about Dougie's mandate letters today, I hope. And also, we haven't had a chance to mention it, but the foreign interference sort of body or inquiry and whatnot has started actually on Monday. So if you want to catch up on that kind of stuff, I haven't had a chance to look at any of it yet.
Busy.
Unfortunately. I don't know. I have no idea what's going on with it. If you would like to support us in other ways, please go to our coffee page. That's that squiggly by Mr. Grizzly's head here. If you go to there, you can make a donation to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund. And I keep on saying I'm going to thank all the people that have donated soon, but we keep on having to close quickly or we talk too much. But we will do it.
Hurry up.
We will do it. We will do it.
I got a meeting in 2 minutes and I got to pee.
Okay, we will do it. But there you go. Coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. And there you can help us out. Remember to tell your peeps and poops all about us. The other QR code is Mr. Grizzly's ASMR channel. Please go to there as well. And
I have a show at 2 o'clock today.
All right. And then Mr. Grizzly, please, if you have some words of wisdom.
Stay informed, stay up to date. Keep your ear to the ground and pay attention to what's going on around you. Danielle Smith is trying to turn Alberta into the Handmaid's Tale, and she is doing it in real time. So if you have friends and family in Alberta, and I do, if they're not aware of what's going on, please let them know and have them write their MLAs, please, because she is going to take that province apart piece by piece, and she's doing it.
Record speed, too. JB gave you your democracy, something that you do. Mr. Grizzly just gave you another one. So from the Beaver Lodge, this is your eager beaver saying it could be a tough world out there. So please be kind and gentle with yourselves. And Mr. Grizzly, roll the credits, please. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, have a beaverific weekend, and good luck to Canada competing at Davis Cup. Go, 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 go.